Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Great to have you with us as we are embarking on the Wednesday night show tonight. Lorien Fenton is here. First hour, we're going to talk some UFOs. Second hour, some JFK. And we'll see if there's a third hour or not, because we got to see if Courtney is available tonight. I think she'll be here. So, well, either way, Lorien's ready for it. She's ready for anything. That's why she is Mrs. Hustle in this field of UFOs. All right, let's say hello to all of you before I keep getting tongue-tied. I'm so excited. Lorien is on. Race fan in the gold medal position. Roy Boy taking home the silver. Jimmy Gonzalez with a nice bronze medal tonight. And who else do we have? Kurt M., Simon the Likeable, the attorney at large, Michael Morris, Tim Mothman and Tim Mothman's goatee. Nice to see you. Brown Dwarf, good to see you. SG Nav Spotter, great to have you here. Canna Chef Chris is here. Canna Chef Chris will be signing out and signing off and signing up. What the hell am I? How about signing autographs after the show? Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind. To the left of the studio. Those who comment on the Windsor Spitfires will get an added autograph to the photo. Susie B., how are you, my dear? Corey, thanks for coming on in. Road Flare and the gorgeous and talented Kira, nice to see you. Gong Show, what's happening, my man? The Lost Souls Trilogy, good to see you. Kevin, Lee the Bee, Mike Arrington, nice to have you all here. Paul Demon, and what's happening? D. Cohen, nice to see you. Ron Baca, thanks for coming on in. Dino Bravo, good to see you. And we continue on with Roll Call with Night Gazer. Holy cow, you're back. And let's see, who else is here? Forrest Louie, how you doing, my man? Thank you, Forrest Louie, for kicking off the Super Chat tonight. The Super Chat is a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis, so thank you very, very much. Okay, continuing on, we have Roger Murray, and number 21 in your program, starting at left wing from Stockholm, Sweden. Lars Jansson, there he is. He's got 23 goals in 17 games so far this year. He's red hot. He's going to win the Rocket Richard Trophy this year, I guarantee it. Jennifer Patterson, looking lovely tonight. Luscious Jewels, Robert Lamoth, nice to see you. Free Your Mind, how's it going? And who else is here? Susan Alloway, nice to see you. And let's see here. T-Bone, my man. T-Bone will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind, to the right of the studio. Marty Burback, Nick Atkins, good to see you. Hi, Kathy Evans, D. Cypher, Barb Madison, Destiny Rocks, how are you? Welcome to SOR Chat. Richard Elmore, the lovely Jenny Whitebear, thank you for coming on in. Super Crazy, Tim F., nice to have you both here. Hi, Vanessa and Robert Anthony, and Joanne, look at that. Thomas Rock, how you doing? One of our favorite veterans around here, Dennis Zuniga. Thank you for your service, my man. Very much appreciate your love. Craig Ansel over on Facebook. Thanks for joining us. Michael Sekulov, what's happening? And who else do we have here? The purple-haired Pixie Lara. Yes, she is amazing. Let's see. Robert Anthony. And let's see here. Mr. Cowley. Welcome back. Paramarv, he loves a good slice of peanut butter and celery. Yes, he does. Flat 6, good to see you, JMJ. Randall P. McMurphy, welcome to SOR Chat. Let's get the radio side going here. Welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Lorien Fenton will be our guest. Hour number 1, we are talking UFOs. And in hour number 2, we're going to get into the JFK saga, the story that will not go away. We are doing roll call right now. Say hello to Bill WD40 in the Spreaker chat. He is officially lubing us up for tonight's show, and I'm excited. I am very, very excited. All right. Let's see here. All right, let's go like that. And Heather Birdie, welcome to SOR Chat. And B, Jerry O'Brien, Neil Attenbury, he'll be in Reno for our time there. Horns up. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Our website, spacedoutradios.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got a great show for you tonight. Lorien Fenton, we're going to convince her to do the distance tonight because Courtney Marcassani cannot make the UFO report. And she's had an emergency in her family. So we're going to see if Lorien Fenton, our good guest, will go the distance tonight with us. You know what? I bet you if I twist her arm about that much, yay big, as the old timers used to say. Remember when everything, well, how big was it? It was yay big. How the hell big was yay big back in the day? You know, I don't know. But we're going to convince her. I'm going to twist her arm yay much. See if she'll go 3 hours with us tonight. We got a lot to talk about with her. Steve Stockton from Among the Missing will also be here in hour number 3. All right, let's get to it. Lorien Fenton became actively involved in the San Francisco Bay Area UFO community after almost dying from a mysterious form of pneumonia during the summer of 2009. It was that near-death experience which propelled her into doing work that she loves in a community that she has been passionate about her entire life. Let's go back 11 years. Lorien founded the nonprofit Conscious Community Events. She and the CCE produced the Mind Control Summits at the San Francisco Bay Area UFO Con, which I have had the pleasure of going down to the last number of years. We love Lorien around here, and I got to tell you, I always say this because it comes from the heart. She hates it when I do this, but I don't care. You know, I don't care. She's shaking her head behind the scenes going, don't say it. Don't say it. This show and my popularity in this field would be literally half to 2/3 of what it is if it wasn't for Lorien Fenton. She helped put us on the map. She helped put Spaced Out Radio into the conference scene. She has been an integral part of my friendship in this UFO community. She is like the big sister that always is there for me. And I just love her dearly. Lorien Fenton, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio. I know you hate it when I compliment you, but you know what? I'm the leader of the microphone tonight. So
Okay. You win. I gotta say though that I was very shocked to hear that you were excited about getting lubed up for tonight's show.
Well, that's Bill WD-40 in the chat room. You know,
Oh my God. I don't know where that came from. That was so bizarre. I was like, oh my God, he's excited about it. So that's good, I guess.
you always want to go into a show nice and smooth. And our listener, Bill WD-40, when he enters the room, the first thing he does is spray everything down, lubes us up for the show, so that way the show goes nice and smooth.
Oh God, that was so funny, I gotta tell you. And yes, thank you for the compliment. I'm gonna accept it this time and not sit here and be upset about it.
Well, I'm glad. I am very glad. I am going to convince you. I know it's extremely short notice, but since you mentioned right before we came on air that you're prepared for 3 hours, my UFO report, Lady Courtney, she's had a family emergency. She just sent me a message, so I'm going to hold you over. And I know because I
Do
know
we have
that
anybody else to join us?
no, it's just you and me tonight.
Oh, okay.
Old school radio tonight. It's going to be a lot. Going to be a lot of fun. So
yeah, I've had a wild weekend. It's this Saturday is our big MUFON annual 13th annual Christmas party. So I'm really excited about it. I'm going to go decorate the clubhouse where I live, and we're going to put up a tree. It's got alien ornaments all over it and UFOs. And Rob Potter's coming down from Mount Shasta to give us the Venus report this year at the party. So we're going to have all kinds of stories about the Venusians and Valiant Thor and all kinds of things like that. It'll be a lot of fun. If anybody lives in Northern California or even Southern Oregon or Nevada or wherever, this party's well worth coming over for. A lot of people stay at the Motel 6 right down the street, and then they make a morning of it before they head out of town. And we have a blast. We really have fun. So if you're anywhere in the area, just go to MUFON, that's MUFON, Marin, MARIN, Sonoma, SONOMA.com, and you can check out the Christmas party. So it's a blast. We really have a lot of fun, but you do have to register, and there's a little fee for the food. So yeah, but a lot of fun.
I want to get onto the UFO subject with you because, Lorien, you are somebody who has been doing this long enough where I think, and I know you won't take this as an insult when I say it this way, you're one of the best representatives of old school ufology. Okay, where you still took someone's story, you investigated it, you found the evidence, and you found people to talk about it, and you kind of built it from there, almost very journalistically, even though there's really no journalism involved, but you kind of set it up that way. And today's ufology, we see a lot of people, and I'm sure you get it on your own podcast. Where's the proof? Show me the proof. There is no proof. And I'm looking at this thinking, okay, how do we blend ufology together in order to try and get everybody on the same page, that we are here for the same cause? We all want disclosure. We all want the U.S. government to tell us the aliens are here with no BS, no rhetoric, no threat narrative, even though it'll never go that way. But how do we start blending people together? Because there is no proof. There is no proof out there.
This is a real tough topic because I sit here almost on a daily basis as a MUFON section director, really contemplating how this is all going to come together. I'm just going to use MUFON as an example. MUFON started out with just scientific nuts and bolts, and that was the way that they did things. And there were a lot of scientists involved in it. About 15 or so years ago, maybe 20 tops, they decided to add the ET element to MUFON. And they got a lot of ridicule over the first 5 years of even having a panel brought together to help the experiencers. They got lambasted by the military, by the CIA, by everybody that used to go to them for information. And I always thought that was very strange that the military, the scientists and all those people were making a big judgment about the fact that MUFON finally was embracing the fact that ET does live, and that people are having contact with it. Whether it's Bigfoot all the way to, angels and the grays in between and the reptilians, we're having contact of many dimensional spaces, whether it's a hard ship or, a being that materializes in light in your living room and then disappears. And we're finally getting to a point a few years ago where this was starting to become accepted in the community, which was very interesting. Even the scientists were starting to maybe we need to pay attention to that. Maybe these people aren't crazy. And then, and I hate to say this because I know you're a big fan of all the congressional hearings and all that stuff, but then all this started in the media with Washington. And now I'm seeing what you're seeing. There's starting to become a big divide in the UFO community around the fact that the contactees are feeling left out because this whole disclosure has nothing to do with them, and they won't even bring up the story until Rush. And now he's getting so much flack for bringing it up that I'm not sure anybody's going to pay attention to him in DC. Now, I haven't been able to follow it for the last month because I've been really, really busy. I was in Dallas for 10 days, and I've had a lot of things happen at work, so I really haven't followed it. But the bottom line was a month ago, I was starting to worry that the contactees are now being, again, shoved to the side like they were 20 years ago before anybody started embracing them. And it was really, it's really kind of worrisome to me because without the contactees, we really only have military sightings. I mean, personal sightings that people have caught on video, but the military has caught so much more on video that we have never seen yet. And that's going to come eventually if we keep having the hearings in DC. But again, the contactees are kind of being shoved to the side. And maybe it's just for now, David. I don't know. I'm just worried that, it's going to take a long time for us to get any kind of for the government to even start asking us questions. Because we really are we're the magic wand in this whole thing. We're the glue that holds ufology together. Without the contactees, there is no ufology.
Very true. And, Gary Nolan from Stanford University actually stated that we have to start giving the people who are having the traditional experiences of ET and UFO contact, we have to start giving them credit where credit is due, because without those reports, we have no starting points. So people
Right.
can bitch and complain about the fact that there is no evidence, so to speak. But I mean, I want some of these critics to tell me point blank, and I think I'm a pretty smart guy. How is a person like David Grush or Lou Elizondo, love him or hate him, supposed to give the public any sort of evidence when they have it tied down in congressional hearings? They can't just make a photocopy and say, oh, by the way, here's a list of names who have had encounters with crash retrievals. Some of them may be hostile witnesses, but here's one for you, Tim Burchett and Anna Luna and many others. And by the way, Mr. and Mrs. Public, here's your list. It doesn't work that way. And are we just
That's the problem.
Are we just fickle these days because we're tired of the anecdotal story? We're tired of government games. We're just tired overall. Like, just get it over with, rip the Band-Aid off and let's go.
Yeah, well, sadly, I've done a lot of interviews lately with contactees. I made a point this year on my show to try to get as many contactees in as I can. And one of the things that we're all coming to the conclusion of is that basically we're following what's going on with the government, but we all know the truth already. So it's kind of like we're not really paying that much attention because we don't need to. We're contactees, I mean, it's kind of redundant for us. It's interesting how the government's handling it, But as we all know, there's like a whole separate group of government people out there that deal with contactees that are hiding in the dark, and they're not going to get to a congressional hearing maybe for 10 years if we're lucky, you know.
Lori, do you believe, okay, and I've talked to a number of sources about this recently. Do you believe there is an invisible college that is really running this entire show, whether it's people involved like Hal Puthoff or Jim Semivan or whomever it may be? Is there an invisible college that's a little bit of a UFO conspiracy out there? But I'm just curious what you know about it.
I don't know that it truly exists, but I believe it does. After all the years, I've been doing this for at least 43 years now. I was 13 when I first started getting into anything. And I went to the library and got my first book on ufology. And I also went that year and got my first book on JFK. And the only book I think I could find at that time was Mark Lane's book, Rush to Judgment. I think that was it. But anyhow, point to this is I've been doing this for 43 years. I've literally been talking about it at my Thanksgiving table with my family and getting, laughed at and just all kinds of crazy things. But everybody I've talked to, which is quite extraordinary that I know that many contactees. I was shocked as I look back on it this last year, and I've been talking to contactees since I was 13 years old. My uncle was the first one. He was in the military in the Second World War. He was on a merchant marine ship, and giant UFOs would come out of the water, and they'd be glowing green and orange and yellow. And I mean, that's the first story I ever heard. So that really, that was my bite into it. But I've been very lucky. A lot of contactees or people who have had extraordinary sightings have come to me and told me their stories over the years. I have no idea why, but they have, which really set me up to believe. And see, this is the problem. We've got guys in the military that didn't believe until they were 50 years old on the bridge of a ship, and suddenly something comes out of the water and they see it. What are they going to do? They can't deny it at that point, but also they can't talk about it because they're in the military. And they've got amazing footage, and it's everywhere. I mean, just think of the Tic Tac videos. That's just a drop in the bucket from what the military has. So these guys, somebody behind the scenes is making sure that the military, getting back to your point, making sure that the military does not divulge what they actually know. So yes, I think there is somebody back there, whether it's the, MJ-12 or, this, invisible college people that everybody talks about or what have you. I think it's just a higher echelon of some type of military program that very few people know about. I think that's just my opinion at this stage.
Okay, we have heard of the aviary going back 20, 30 years plus. We know that what this was is a bunch of scientists and government officials who were nicknamed birds or different types of birds in order to talk publicly on phone calls. So let's say Bruce Maccabee was the bluebird, and somebody else was the oriole or the seagull or whoever it may be. I mean, this is the way they talk code, because back in the day, phones used to get tapped, and
Exactly.
and this is how old school ufology used to work. So if we had that aviary, which was a bunch of leaders and pioneers on the governmental side of this, why couldn't we have a special group that we don't know about running the UFO story and the narrative?
Absolutely. Yeah, we do. I mean, I absolutely believe it. And I believe, and this is just from my experience with my ETs or my angels or whoever is contacting me, I actually believe that they have shown me that there is a group of people out there, and they work very much behind the scenes. And what's interesting was what they showed me, and you guys don't have to believe it. It doesn't matter because it's my thing. It's a personal experience I had with them. They also stated that it's international. There are many other countries with people involved in it, but Russia and China and a few of the other countries are not involved with this group. They have their own groups, okay? And this is what they showed me. Now, whether it's real or not is another whole issue. It's more like an Interpol kind of thing where there's many people from different countries and people. And what was even more interesting in this vision I had, or whatever you want to call it, insight vision, many of these people were contactees, and they deal with aliens on a regular basis. So I was quite shocked with that. And if I ever saw any of these people, that would be amazing. I'd love to meet them. There are a few here in the States that I think are part of this group, and I have met them. So, yeah.
Okay, so how political is this?
Very. Where do you think they're getting their money from? And they get to make decisions and spend money on things that we don't have a clue about. They're doing, from what I can understand and from what I've been shown, they're doing all kinds of studies on humans. Basically, the military is doing it's an offshoot of the military. So I'm just going to call it the military contactee complex, okay? And they're doing all kinds of experiments on us, trying to get us to the point where we can actually communicate with ET. Let me tell you why this is a big problem. The biggest problem we have as human beings is the fact that we do not have the capability in our physical structure to communicate with ET, especially the grays and the reptilians, on the level that we physiologically are. They have many different little brains in their head, the grays, and they're all connected to their optical nerve. If you look at a gray's eye, if they take off the shielding or whatever it is they have on there, it looks like a bunch of caviar stuck together, and it's very dark. And you look in each one of those little caviars is connected to a little brain sac inside their head. And each one of those little brain sacs is connected to the next one, and they're telepathic. So they've got a neural network going with the gray standing next to them. So look, you figure there's 50 little brains in one gray's head. There's 50 little brains in the other gray's head. There's 50 more in the next guy's head. They've got a whole network going that goes to levels of dimensions of consciousness that we can't even perceive. So that's the problem we're having right now, is how do we communicate with ET unless they dumb themselves down enough to talk to us? Now, many of the contactees I've talked to over the years, especially people like Lynn Buchanan and people that were asked to go with the Greys and live with them and be with them, were able to communicate on a level that is far superior to us speaking verbally. They were able to communicate telepathically to special ETs that are able to communicate with us in our thought process. They're made just to do that, to communicate with Earthlings. And this is one of the contactees I've talked to, told me about her experience learning about this. So, yeah, I mean, they're doing all kinds of experiments trying to figure out how we're going to evolve to the point where we can actually be part of the other dimensional universes that visit us on a constant basis. And not all of them are good. There's the other problem. Who are we going to do? Not all of them have our best interest at heart.
Oh, I understand exactly what you're saying, as we got about 30 seconds to go before we have to go to break. At the bottom of the hour, Lorien Fenton is our guest. And Lorien, when we return, I want to ask you about whistleblowers, because you have dealt with a lot of controversial topics over the years, where you have talked to a lot of whistleblowers over the years. And we've seen what's happened with David Grush. We see how they are still, and now we see members of the Republican Party that are actually trying to put a stain on his record, even calling it. You never hear a politician call out a veteran, ever. And yet it's happening to David Grush. We're going to talk whistleblowers with Lorien Fenton when we return on UFOs Behind the Scenes tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We're having a great show. I hope you tune on in and enjoy the woo that we bring to you on a nightly basis. We'll be right back right after this.
Oh, I wish I had a cup of coffee. I've got a little bit left.
All right. Hi, Neil Warden. How you doing? President Zaddy, F you. All right. Who else do we got here? Little Cam over on Twitch, who's like 6'9". And let's see. Who else has arrived here? I'm way behind in the chat room. Way behind.
Do we really have hockey players listening in, or is that just a thing?
Oh, that's just a thing.
Dang. I wish hockey players were listening in.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe. Guy Calgary, Badass Billy Gunn. And who else has showed up here? All right. Marvel asked that in hour number 2. Operation Shutdown, how you doing? Mennonite Abe, good religious boy. Algaray, what's happening, my man? And I think we're caught up. We are caught up.
My Sharks suck this year.
Oh, my Oilers are I don't know what the hell's going on. We've already fired.
I don't either.
Coach. I mean,
every game I watch, I end up crying. It's so sad. Actually, they did good the other night. They did good the other night against God, who was it? The Canucks, I think.
They still lost, though, didn't they?
Yeah, they went. I don't know. All I know is that they did a lot better. So,
yeah.
I think they're in Boston on Friday. I'll have to record the game.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
All right.
How's your kids' hockey team doing? Are they winning?
They're not bad. They lost last week. They got a pair of games this week.
Good. Hope they win.
One in town, one out of town. 1 second here, Lorien.
Sure.
We have a couple of birthday girls in the audience.
Great.
Here we go. Ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Sherry and Rain. Happy birthday to you.
That was great, Dave. We harmonized well.
Yes. That was beautiful. Brings a tear to my eye. Brandon Blount, how you doing? And God, I love singing happy birthday to my audience members. It's awesome. Lorien Fenton.
Oh gosh, Dave. This party's going to kill me this weekend. I'm making like 5 pumpkin pies tonight.
I have my Christmas party at work as well.
Is it this week or next week?
This Saturday.
Yep. Is the whole family going?
I may have a date or two, yeah. No, seriously, it's a semi-formal dinner. So,
nice.
The one thing I love about my boss is my daytime boss. That is that he doesn't cheap out on the gifts.
Oh, nice. We like that.
Last year, I won a watch. I'm not going to say how much it is, but it was well over $1,000.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. Oob to Joe's Maine. You've got aliens. Yes, you do. Hi, Vanessa. Yeah. So, my boss is like he never wants to be known as the cheap ass boss. You know?
Right.
So he's really he's freaking awesome that way. Freaking awesome.
Now, who's your night boss? Is that you?
That's me. I'm the night boss.
You're the night boss. I love it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I
I
am a
thought it might
pants
be your wife.
No, you haven't seen this one yet, Kira. I'll be breaking it out in Reno. Yep. All right, we got 10 seconds. Thank you to Louie and T-Bone for the super chats. Very much appreciate the love. Remember, head to our store on our website. We do not have ugly swag, people. Get buying. Here we go. Here we go with the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Lorien Fenton talking UFOs, and then later on JFK. Yeah, we're going to have some fun tonight. Reminder to all of you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can join us on Patreon in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Here we go, Lorien Fenton from MUFON San Francisco Bay. She is here talking all things UFO with us right now. Lorien, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Dave. This is a lot of fun. Thank you.
We are getting into whistleblowers now. Now, over the years, you have brought out a number of whistleblowers, mainly in the secret space program, Super Soldiers. But a whistleblower, nonetheless, is a whistleblower. And we've seen David Grush get absolutely chewed up and spit out by those who are trying to protect the military-industrial complex. Have you ever heard of a veteran in this field ever be blown up by a politician the way David Grush was by Mike Turner?
Well, actually, yeah, they've never been really kind to them. If they're opposed to what they're talking about, they're not very kind. But I was very upset about what he did, because he basically was telling him that he didn't know what he was talking about. And that really upset me, because it's like, the guy is risking his career to sit there in front of these guys and tell them stuff that is very hard to believe, number one. And number two, he has no reason to come forward. I mean, come on. It's like, that really upset me, very much so. And I think that most of the whistleblowers are, especially the ones that are major contactees in the military, the 4 or 5 I've talked to that have extraordinary stories that I can't even tell you guys about, because they've asked me never to speak of it, ever, ever, ever. It are some of the most credible people I've ever met in my life, but they're afraid for their lives. I mean, that's how deep some of this goes. They're so afraid of for their lives. And it's not because of the ET situation that they were involved in. It's because of the military situation. And here's the tough part, and most of you are just going to say, Lorien, you're out of your mind. You know, everybody talks about this 20 and back program. Well, it's not really 20 and back. I hate to tell you guys. What it really is a mind control. Okay, now I'm getting back to my old roots, mind control. It's a mind control time slip that the ETs are able to control. If the person in the military goes in and gets picked for one of these programs without their knowledge, they are used by an ET and military program, a secret space program, and there are a lot of weird things that happen to them. I'm going to give you guys one example, and this is actually from Melinda, and I hope she doesn't get mad at me for talking about it, because I don't know this person, and that is the reason I'm talking about it, because I don't know him. She had a guy she was dealing with that went into the military, believes he was part of a secret space program, but he didn't know it until he woke up literally woke up mentally in his parents' kitchen doing the dishes, and he didn't know where he was because the last thing he remembered was being on a military base and going to bed in a barracks somewhere. So it's a year and a half later, and the guy mentally wakes up in front of the dishes and he goes to his parents, like, you know, how long have I been here? What the heck's going on? And they're like, you've been home for a year and a half. You got an honorable discharge. We're so proud of you, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh my God. So there's a lot of mind control going on. And I think that is one of the reasons that back when I did the original mind control super soldier targeted individual conferences in 2012, 13, and 14, we were so attacked. I mean, and I got to say, 4 or 5 of the guys that were involved in those first 2 or 3 conferences are now no longer with us. They are dead. And I'm not, in several cases, I think it was just accidental death. But in 3 or 4 of the cases, I'm beginning to wonder, you know, how they could kill themselves in the manner they did. Supposedly they committed suicide. And I'm still wondering about that. But yeah, there's some real interesting stuff going on with whistleblowers, because the ones I know that have extraordinary stories, Dave, they're never going to talk. Ever, 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 because number one, I think they're programmed not to talk. And number two, they're so afraid that they'll get killed, that and their families will get killed, that they'll never speak up. And that's a big problem.
And that's where I kind of want to go is David Grush has, came out and stated that both he and his family, or he and his wife, they have no children, okay,
Right.
have on a few occasions now been threatened.
Yes.
What are those, you've talked to people, what are those threats like?
They're horrific. And I got to tell you, this is one of the things that upset me way back in 29 when I first started. I think it was 7 when I heard the first guy came to me that said, I'm being threatened. And I was like, really? Come on. Seriously? Why would they threaten you? You know, that was my attitude. Because you know how I am, Dave. I don't believe anybody about anything until I get 3 or 4 people coming to me with the same topic, right? Because it's hard to digest if you don't have at least 3 or 4 people from different walks of life coming together and all different ages and saying the same thing. And I think he was like the 5th person that came to me and said, blah, blah, blah. You know, there were helicopters over my house. I got a threatening phone call from an artificial intelligence voice. And this is back in like 2004, he said this was happening to him. And he goes, it threatened to kill me, and it threatened to kill my family in front of me before they killed me. And here's the kicker, and I'm gonna say this, and I always said I'm never gonna say this on live television, but you know, we're getting to the point where it needs to be said. These people, whoever they are, that are threatening people, they have threatened my guys with following them into the next dimension. In other words, torturing them on a level that only ET, angels, and God can get to. Now, whether it's true or not, I don't know, but I've actually heard it from 5 people now that they threaten to kill them or take them into another dimension of torture that we can't even comprehend. And these guys are so afraid of this. They absolutely believe it. Now, the reason I think they believe it is because I think whoever is in charge of this program, this torture program in another dimension, has given them a taste of what it felt like for a fraction of a second. And the reason I believe that is because at one point in my life, whoever I'm dealing with gave me a taste of what evil is like. And my God, folks, I can't even describe it to you. I'll start crying. It was so horrific, and it was for a half of a second, and I still can't get the pictures out of my brain. Okay, so, and they didn't threaten me with anything, but if the guys that are threatening these guys on a very spiritual, etheric kind of dimensional level, if they have some kind of process down, maybe it's a type of mind control. I don't know what they're doing to these guys, but they have scared them to the point, Dave, where these guys will never, ever, ever, ever talk. This is why when I see all these guys come out and say, oh, I'm a super soldier and I was on a craft and I did 20 and back and all this stuff, if they're out there talking about it, I'm sorry to say, 90% of them are lying. Seriously.
Right. Okay, so someone like David Grush, okay, who is
Yes. Which I have
obviously
a lot of respect for, by the way.
okay. What happens to other whistleblowers who see what he is going through? Because if
Oh,
I'm somebody who's trying to follow the lead here, I don't know if I'm coming out if all of a sudden I'm seeing his medical records getting doxxed, okay, his him being, putting, his entire life around, the subject of of ridicule on the
yeah.
internet and memes and all sorts of gifts and all sorts of things. I mean, to me, that's just not kosher. It's just
Yeah.
not kosher in trying to want to even be a part of anything. I'm looking at it and saying, well, maybe this whistleblower crap isn't a good idea.
I think it's a great idea, but I'm gonna go back a little bit to 2019. Do you remember the guys who came out off of the Princeton and the
Yes, Kevin Day.
Roosevelt? Yeah. Okay. So that whole crowd of guys, they got to whistleblow without sitting in front of Congress. So think about this for a minute. They've never been really harassed. And I wonder why that is. And they got to be on TV shows and they got to be interviewed and they got to do all this. So you got to ask yourself, what is it that they did that got their story out there without them getting lambasted? And the only difference is Rush went to the government and these guys went to entertainment, you know? So it's kind of interesting to me how the government it really does not want the UFO thing out there and they're harassing these poor whistleblowers. And I can tell you this right now, none of those guys will go in front of a public forum. If they were behind closed doors, I'm sure they would talk, right? Like Kevin Day and those guys. I'm sure they'd all talk, but there's no way they're going public because they don't want their name out there and they don't want to be harassed. And the government they absolutely should be protecting these guys. They should not have them in a public forum where we can all see their faces and their testimony should be in print only and we never know their names. That's how it should be. And the Congress guys can look at them all they want, but I don't think the public should have a right to see it because it just causes major problems. And these guys, they weren't elected. They aren't like Mayorkas or all these other guys who get into these hearings and we have the right to watch it because they're in office. These are whistleblowers and they should never be out in public like that, ever. And I think the government knows that. They know that they're gonna be harassed and they let it happen and it really bothers me. And there's a nefarious thing behind it all, Dave. There's gotta be. And that's why the other whistleblowers aren't gonna come out is because they're not being protected.
And I would agree with you on that. I think that we're seeing some real savage play right
Yeah,
now on behalf of members, especially the pair of Mikes, Turner and I believe it's Parker or something like that, who are absolutely roasting the idea of the Schumer amendment, which is pretty much shot down as of right now. And that would have seen more funding and more protection for whistleblowers come through. But hey, why wouldn't Mike Turner zip his mouth and turn his cheek against the people like David Grush of the UFO community when his voting base mainly works at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base?
exactly. Now you got to remember, a lot of these guys are ex-military too, and they understand there's an oath between military guys that I've had a really hard time breaking. Really hard time. Finally, they're trusting me and they're telling me things that they wouldn't tell anybody else, especially the military themselves. But bottom line is, there's an oath that if you see these kind of things, you've got to say into your head, it's national security. I'm never going to talk about it. And they're not happy with guys that are running out there whistleblowing like this. They really thought that they had the UFO thing under wraps because everybody involved on every major aircraft carrier has kept their mouth shut. There's over 2,500 people on an aircraft carrier now?
5,000.
5,000. Okay, so you guys think about it. How many aircraft carriers do we have? We got 5 or 10 of them, right? Huge ones. So that's 50,000 people that are keeping their mouths shut. And it's not hard to do. People will go, well, why don't we know about all this? I go, because you got 50,000 people who have agreed on a deep level never to talk about it because of national security issues. And because they're going to get lambasted if they become a whistleblower. I mean, what's the good part of all this? You know, I would never come forward.
No, I don't think I ever would either. I mean, it's just it wouldn't make sense to put, if I were to look at my situation right now, where I have a partner, I have children, I don't need my children being doxxed where they're going to school or what they're doing in
Exactly.
life or how much money I have in my bank account or my medical records. That's not necessary news. It's not
Yeah,
necessary.
last I heard, wasn't he being drawn and quartered for having like alcohol abuse or something like that? I don't know.
Well, that's what they tried to get him on, and then
Yeah,
basically the veteran community really hopped up and said, "Really, you're attacking a veteran?" And it didn't look too
yeah.
good for the reporter who actually
Good
spewed
for
that.
them. So he
Yeah,
does have some support then. That's great. I didn't
he
know
has
that.
yeah, he has a lot of support, especially from the scientific community. He recently spoke at the Soul Foundation that Gary Nolan put on in your area
Right.
a week or two ago. And it's important that that those open talks continue, right?
Yeah.
It really has to continue. Um, but I agree with you. I don't think we're going to see any more whistleblowers. I think that this is going to go on a major hiatus for the next little bit. And I really do believe that the military, starting at the Pentagon, wants to kill this story. They want this story to go away. Lorien, you've been around long enough to know, why do they want it to go away? Is it because they want to keep the toys for themselves?
Are you kidding me? I mean, I go back to David Adair. I think David Adair was one of the first people I cut my teeth on, along with Bob Lazar, right? And you think about their stories and you think about Clifford Stone's story. I mean, and all these guys that were, or Robert O'Dean was a good friend of mine. Uh, you think about their stories, folks, and it's like, there's no way the government wanted them talking, and they kept them quiet. I mean, Clifford Stone was getting, okay, I'm going to tell you guys something. Every one of those guys, they're visited at least once a year, more likely twice a year. And it isn't because they're knocking on the door to say, here's a fruit basket. These guys are knocking on their door to say, keep your mouth shut. And if you ever talk, we're going to do something to you. Okay. And if they do talk, suddenly their wives start dying. Okay. Of a strange, rare disease that nobody on the rest of the planet has. Ask David Adair about that. Talk about being pissed. Okay, so that's number one. I mean, that was one of the first things I cut my teeth on, is the fact that they go after their own with a vengeance, and they don't want anybody knowing the fact that they've had crashed UFOs within their military complexes, and they've been studying them all these years. And that, yes, Skunk Works and many of those private companies have contracts with them that have developed some type of secret space program projects. And I'm talking beyond the Blackbird and beyond the TR-3B. You guys, I saw a giant triangle that I know was ours, and this thing was huge. I mean, it was huge, and it was mind-boggling to me, because I knew when I looked at it that there were aliens on the craft, but there were also humans on that craft too. I knew that. And I was asked by a major scientist at one point, how did you know? And I said, because I know what a UFO feels like when it's just ET in it. There's a whole different feeling that goes with it. It doesn't feel like a car's driving by and someone's looking at you. And that's what it felt like. When you have a real UFO with a real ET in it, and that's all that's there, you get this connection feeling, and you're actually in their mind. Okay. Now, I don't know if there's many contactees listening tonight, but you guys all know what I'm talking about. So when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, they've been hiding this. They have amazing technology, absolutely mind blowing technology that'll blow you guys away. And they certainly don't want their whistleblowers talking about it. And especially people like David Adair, Robert O'Dean, Clifford Stone talking about the fact that he was holding dying aliens in his arms. I mean, that's basically, what's interesting, Dave, is I never found out who Brush was talking about, but he started telling stories about, having biological entities and things like that. And one of those stories started to sound like a Clifford Stone incident. So I think he got a hold of some of the Clifford Stone, actual reports from what Clifford Stone did.
We got 3 minutes to go before we have to go to break at the top of the hour. And next hour, we're going to start off with crash retrievals, because
Ooh, cool.
I think that's an important topic to ask you about, Lorien. But, getting back to the conspiracy side of the government here, do you see a day where they're going to have to give up the fact that we've been contacted?
Our military will never give that up. I can almost guarantee that. I really do. But that doesn't mean that the ETs that are working with the contactees won't give it up first. I've got a funny feeling that they might be able to do that. And I think it would be very interesting if they did, if they were the actual, entity that did something like that. Like, I'm going to give you guys an example. What if a group of contactees could go out into a military base and call in the ships and have them talk to the president of the United States? I think that's more of a scenario we're going to see than the military ever saying, yes, they're real and they're here.
I don't think they want to.
Yeah.
We were talking with a good friend of yours and mine last night, Michael Schratt. And
Mike, yeah.
And one thing that we talked a little bit about was the fact that aviation really hasn't changed in 70 years. I mean, you look at, if we want to get real, the SR-71, the fastest plane known to man, which retired in 1990,
Yep.
is still considered the fastest jet in the world.
Yes.
Okay. And it was built in the 1950s. Designed in the 1950s, built with stealth technology in the early 60s, like 59 through 61. Okay.
Absolutely.
If we look at a Boeing 747, same body style for 60 years. Yes, there's been computerized computerized improvements and, structural improvements and everything like that. But it's a 60-year-old design. Where is everything hiding? Is it Area 51? Is it other places, Lorien? Where is it?
Well, I think that there are some bases. Okay, I probably should keep my mouth shut about this, but I'm pretty sure there's some bases in some Midwestern northern states, and I'm going to give you one other state, North Carolina. That's why I'm going to leave it at that, because I'm going to get in trouble if I say more.
Wow. That's kind of impactful right there.
Yeah, I promised these people I would never talk about it, but I will tell you North Carolina because some of it leaked a while back. So there you go.
Lorien, on that note, when we return from the break here on Spaced Out Radio, we are going to get into crash retrievals and alien bodies. Why?
Oh, cool.
Why? Because that's next. That's next on the list. And I want to get your opinion on a lot of this, because I've been waiting for this conversation for a lot of time, because you bring a lot of relaxed, temperamental knowledge to this. And we're going to get into it. Lorien Fenton, MUFON board member, conference host. She's one of the best in the UFO world. And we love it every time she is on Spaced Out Radio. We will be right back for hour number 2, right after this. Keep your tinfoil on. If you don't have it on, keep it close. the next hour. All right, we are clear. Vaughn Patrick says, I'm sure the SR-71 remains flying. It does not. From what I am hearing, we're in that SR-72 to SR-75 range right now.
Yeah.
And I believe the SR-72 has already been retired.
Yeah. He's absolutely right. It doesn't much look like it. Well, it does look like it did.
I'll let you talk. Take a quick break, okay?
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, Vaughn, it doesn't look much like it did from what I have been told. And it is very stealthy and it's invisible now. So we're never going to see it in the light of day. That's for sure. I do have to correct Dave. I'm going to tell him this when he comes back. I am not a MUFON board member. I have never been asked. If they did, I'd probably take it, but they have not asked me. There are many reasons why MUFON will never ask me to be a board member, and it's because of my beliefs and my contactee situation and the many whistleblowers I've dealt with. So, and I understand that. They're an organization that has to keep the woo out of it to a point, and I get that. And I'm pretty woo-woo. So they should just change my middle name to Lorien Fenton. I think we'd all be happy. But I absolutely, and this is just for all of you guys listening in right now, I absolutely know for a fact that many of the guys that I've dealt with over the years and the things they've told me are very real. Okay, not just things they told me out of fearfulness or craziness or whatever, but many of these guys are so afraid to come forward. They're very worried about what will happen to them and their families. And they're like I said, they're very worried about this other dimensional type of torture. So, yeah. And like I said, I didn't believe it at first either. I really did not believe these guys. I was like, are you guys kidding me? Whatever. And I'm very kind to everybody. I let them say their piece and I agree with them and I say, okay, fine. And if I hear it from anybody else, I'll mention it, and finally, after 15 or 20 years from 5 different people, I've heard the same story. And these are pretty high up in military guys. So it isn't like they're doing it to everybody, but to the people who really know the truth about what's going on, they're very tortured, and yeah, it's crazy out there. So I wish I had time to make a cup of coffee. Darn, I don't think. I wonder if he's got one of those super breaks coming up where they're like 20 minutes long. Don't think so. Oh well. So Phase Will, you're saying they not doing a good job hiding the UFOs. Well, I agree. No one's trying, but I don't think the ETs are trying to hide them. I think the government's trying to hide theirs, but they're not doing a very good job of it either. I will say, since COVID happened, a lot of the ships are not on a regular flight path like they used to be. I have friends that are out there, at least before COVID, where we were actually doing a kind of study of the skies, and it was more like what Cheryl Costa's doing, where she is mapping all of the sightings that she can. But this is a little different. These are friends of mine that are contactees that know that their ships are on a schedule, and they were appearing in like a certain quadrant of the sky and then disappearing out like a portal on a certain day, certain night of the week kind of thing. And they were mapping that, and a lot of it was happening like on a Saturday night for some of them, on a Thursday night for some of them, depending on where they were in the United States. And then after COVID, things got very sporadic and not on schedule, and they have not gotten back to being on schedule that they can tell right now. So something is going on with our secret space program. They're not sure what it is, but Yeah, something interesting is going on, whereas they're not like they used to be where they were on schedules. Now they're more like random leaving our atmosphere type of situation. So I don't know. Maybe we're not at war in the skies anymore, in the universe anymore. Maybe we're just patrolling once in a while. Who knows? Ooh, Space Travelers Club. That sounds interesting. $5 a month. That's a great fee.
All right.
Who's Mennonite Abe?
Mennonite Abe is one of our longtime supporters. You met him 2 years ago in Las Vegas.
Cool.
Yeah.
Is he really a Mennonite?
No. Name another. Well, maybe he's Lutheran. I don't know. All right. Hi, Brian Dodd. How you doing? Mennonite Abe, nice to see you. Morning, Peter Benton. And D. Saifa, how you doing? And thank you to our super chatters. FaZe Will, T-Bone with a hat trick, Jennifer and Louie. I think this is the third night in a row a hat trick for T-Bone. So thank you for the love and support, my man. Very much appreciated. And go to our store, spacedoutradio.com. We do not have ugly swag, people. We got stuff you want to wear. Here comes hour 2.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is underway. We are talking UFOs. We'll get into some JFK later in hour 3 with Lorien Fenton, as we are having a great time tonight. So thank you for tuning us in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. You can join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Idiogeny. Idiogeny is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can join us on Patreon in the SOR Space Travelers Club. All right, Lorien Fenton continues tonight, and we're going to get into UFO crashes and crash retrievals. Why? Well, this is a hot button topic. Recently, it came out, thank you to Matt Ford, for literally breaking the story of the CIA having not 1, not 2, not 3, but 9 crash retrievals and potential pilots of them. And Lorien, the one thing I found very oddly familiar about this, and maybe you do too, the number 9. In 1989, who came out and said there were 9 craft at S4?
That was good old Bob. I know. It's pretty crazy. When I heard that, I was like, oh my God, you know? But we got to remember, over when Bob was looking at them, there were 3 that were shiny, like brand new and not crashed. And then there were a few that were crashed. So, you know, I'm not sure that Bob saw all the crashed ones. And, you know, we got to remember also David Adair in 1957 or 58, I can't remember the year, saw the crash. It wasn't a UFO, it was an engine from a UFO that was the size of a large school bus or a shipping container on a ro-ro boat. So this thing was pretty big, but it was just the engine of a craft. So he never saw the craft itself. So who knows? I mean, as far as I can tell from Robert O'Dean, back in the day, he told me that all of the crashes that were left at Area 51 were the ones where the engines were still intact and they could work on them and try to figure out how they function. And these were the smaller engines. Apparently, the engine that Dave Adair saw is an engine for one of those 3 football field sized motherships, apparently. And so think about this for a second. I've always thought this was very interesting. It only takes a school bus size thing to power something as big as 3 football fields long. I'm like, whoa, that's teeny in comparison to what we'd have to put on something that size. I mean, my God, we would take up half a football field just in, electronics alone trying to fly something like that. And then the size of the supposed thing that ran the ship that Bob Lazar was working on was the size of a large, small coffee can back in the day. So I'm thinking, wow, they have it down to, 1/100th or less of the size of what they're propelling. So what kind of system is that? That's wild. So, but anyhow, my point to all this is Dave O'Dean told me those ships out at Area 51 when Bob was there were the ones they still had. They could get a hold of the power supply, the whatever propelled the ships, and they could work on them there. Okay. The other crashes were in different places. So if he said 9, I'm not sure that there aren't 30, and I'm not sure there aren't just 9. But I think there were only 4 or 5 when Bob was looking at them that were actually still intact enough that were crashes. And then they had, I think, 2 or 3 at Area 51 when Bob was there that were actually intact. And I don't even know how they got them. Maybe they were ours, or maybe the ETs were showing us how to build them. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, according to David Grush, it could be in the 20s to 30s.
That's my guess too. I have heard from other people besides O'Dean that there were at least 20, and my guess is now there's probably 30. Yeah, I think he's right on, actually.
And David Grush wouldn't go into specifics when he mentioned this on Joe Rogan. But the one thing that he did state was that he didn't want to go into specifics because he knew there would be Chinese and Russian operatives listening to him speak. And just in case they missed some, he didn't want to set off a bunch of spy units trying to find out where, let's say there were 24 crashes and the Chinese only had 22. Those were the numbers that he used. He said he didn't want to set off like these spy units to all of a sudden try and track down and put pressure on for trying to find 2 more crash sites. Right. So,
right.
But I think we also got to be remiss, though, Lorien, that the United States has ripped UFO crashes out of Canada, and they've ripped them out of Mexico.
Yeah. You know about the Kyomi incident, right? You've talked to Ruben about that?
Well, tell our audience about that one.
Okay, that was it was near the border of Texas, closer to New Mexico, if I remember correctly. And actually, what was interesting about this story is the UFO was sighted over America, and it was flying through Texas, and then it crashed on the other side of the Texas border in Mexico. So the Americans were already, they've already had their pilots out there, their jet pilots out there following this thing. And then when it did crash, they were second on the scene. The Mexican military also scrambled some jets and was heading over to it, and they got their army there before our army. And from the story that was written in Ruben Uriarte's book, it's the Kyomi, I think that's how it's pronounced, incident. You guys can find it on Amazon. It's a very interesting story. When the military got there, they went up towards the craft, and there was some kind of gas coming out of the craft, invisible gas. And these guys all got sick, and most of them died on the spot. And by the time our guys got there, they found nothing. Our helicopter got there. They were circling over a bunch of dead bodies. So they knew better than to go down there without hazmat suits on, which they did. And they were able to retrieve bodies, get the Mexican military back to their military and their families. And they were able to get the ship. And I don't know what happened, but it's much more detailed in Ruben's book. And to be honest with you guys, I haven't had a chance to read it, even though he gave me a copy like 8 years ago. But he has told me the story several times. So a very interesting crash. And yes, the U.S. military went in and they told the Mexican military, good luck, we're taking it. It was over our airspace when it started going down, we're taking it. And you know, the Mexican military didn't argue much. You know, they were like, okay, you go ahead and have it. You know, it just killed 30 of our guys. You can have the dang thing, right? So, yeah, that was interesting. And the one in Canada, there's two I know of in Canada. There was not Shag Harbor, but oh God, there was another one up in that area of the Nova Scotia area that the U.S. military came in and pilfered it. Yeah.
And I believe there was one in the province of Manitoba as well.
Yes, absolutely. And I can't remember that incident either. I've got, tons of books on all these things. And, one of these days, Dave, I am going to add to one of my websites a timeline. Michael Schratt and I actually talked about doing this. We're going to add a timeline of all the crashes we think were retrieved by U.S. government or anybody else, for that matter. Because we know there's a couple in France that they got a couple. We know that the Russians got at least 2 or 3. And they took one out of Czechoslovakia and one out of Poland, if I remember correctly. And there's just tons of information out there. And who the guy is, I'm sure you've had him on your show, is Blackstone or Stone. Oh, shoot. What is his name? You know what I'm talking about. The Russian guy that does all the Russian UFO stuff.
I have not had him on the show.
Oh, you got to have him. He's amazing. He's got all the information on all the Russian crashes and things. He's wonderful. His last name is Stone something. I'll get him for you. Anyhow, long story short, folks, there are crashes all over the place. And so my brain, when he said 20 or 30, I was like, yeah, at least. At least.
With the fact that the United States government allegedly has crash retrievals and, according to David Grush, the bodies of the pilots for some of those craft, it makes you wonder where the other bodies are. Like, say, for instance, let's pick a number of 15. Let's say there's 15 crashes out there, and we've recovered 15 different craft. They had to get there somehow. They had to get there in order to be left behind. Do you think that's what happened? Was these craft maybe malfunction and the ETs or whatever they were just left them behind?
They did not malfunction. Trust me on that one. There are things that we have done here. Radiation, microwaves, and other types of lasers are a problem for them because in their dimensional space with how they build the ships, and they showed me that too. And also there's a guy named Ed something or other, I can't think of his name, that gave the great story about Area 51 when he was working there as a scientist, and he went to South America and the ET showed up and showed him how a little like loaf of bread of this silver component stuff got turned into a giant craft by his thought process. You remember this story at all?
Vaguely.
Yeah. Well, anyhow, bottom line to all this is, folks, what they make the crafts out of is it's metallic in nature, but it also has an organic component. And what this ET told Ed, that I can't remember his last name right now, the scientist at Area 51, is the ET told him, think of a fungus here on Earth. That's what this is like. It's not fungus, but that's what it's like. It can replicate itself. It can grow anywhere. It can grow into anything. And it actually has a thought process. And it can communicate with the pilot. And it becomes they become an interchanging part of flying the ship is that the metallic ship itself has a thought process that connects organically, and that's how it works for them. At least that species. I don't know about the others, but okay. But what he did also tell that scientist is that you do things here on Earth that are so antiquated from what we do in our dimension or our space or our planet or whatever, that it's actually like throwing mud onto a a piece of metal. It just like stops it because it's so dense in structure, dense in frequency, dense in whatever we're doing, that it actually hurts the organic material within the ship, and that's why they crash. It has nothing to do with their metallic structure. It has everything to do with the organics in it. And I've asked my ETs about that, and they said that's absolutely true. There's no way we could take down a ship if it was just a metallic kind of thing or whatever, because they work at a molecular level that we don't even understand. Ask Gary Nolan about that. Here's a guy who's looked at a piece of metamaterial under a neutron microscope. And is that what it's called? Yeah, I think it's a neutron. Anyhow, point is, his theory, I mean, what he saw was that the electrons, neutrons, and protons were all in different, wider space than we even have here on this planet, okay? So you're looking at something that can't exist in our reality, and it does. And that's from the ship. So, point to all this is, I'm going the long way around. I'm trying to say that whatever the government was throwing at them, like throwing mud at something, it was so dense, so heavy, and so whatever, that organic material within the ship was injured, and that's why they crashed. It had nothing to do with the structure of the craft or how it was built or anything like that. At least that's what I've been told.
Okay, so the idea then that we have or are in holding these craft and these bodies, why would they be, in your opinion, and I know the answer to this, in your opinion, is it Northrop Grumman or Lockheed Skunk Works that's holding on to these pieces because they're not subject to FOIA requests?
It's everybody. It's everybody, and it's also our military. I think they've all got a piece. Hey, look, Jacques Vallée's got pieces, Who objected the like button? I'm trying to figure out what that means. Anyhow, so yeah, I mean, everybody's got a piece of a UFO, but if you're talking about the more intact, larger pieces, yes, of course, Northrop Grumman, Sandia Labs, Berkeley National Lab, Livermore National Lab, everybody's got a piece of this stuff. Trust me. I found out something very interesting about Livermore National Labs right out here where I live. I was, it's a long story. I was out there one day, and I was working, and one of the scientists was bored with what we were doing. I was part of the HR group that was in there that day. And I started talking to him, and I never talked to anybody out there, hardly ever conversed with anybody. It wasn't my place to do so, so I didn't. But on this afternoon, I kind of did, and he said something very odd to me, because I said, you guys should be working on free energy devices. Where are those? We should have that now. And he said something so bizarre to me that I just thought, oh my God, what have I just done? He said, look, Lorien, we've had that for a long time, and it's flying around us. I was like, oh my God. Now, he could have meant anything, but I took it as UFOs. I really believe he meant that they have developed the type of engineering from back engineering our UFOs, I mean, the crashed UFOs that they have. And I believe that ET helped them. Because when I heard that story about this scientist at Area 51 working with that ET on that loaf of bread thing that turned into a giant ship, I'm thinking, well, ETs had to help them all along here. So the real question we should be asking ourselves, Dave, about this whole thing is, why are they helping us? And why do we have a secret space program? I mean, these are the real, that's the question for me. As a contactee, I could care less if they have them, and I don't know what they're doing with them. And, if they're back engineering them, great. But for me, it really comes down to, are they helping us because we need a secret space program to ward off some really evil, aliens that are attacking us all the time that we don't know about? I mean, why do we have to have it? That's the real question.
That I don't know. I mean, the question I think that's more important is, what are they doing with them? How far have they got in pushing them back into retrofitting them to see what we could do to use them? How much information have we gained that we're not seeing the benefits of the technology? I mean, remember, Lockheed Skunk Works is allegedly 50 to 100 years ahead of what we are seeing today. And
Absolutely.
And like the example I brought up about flight. I mean, the Boeing 747 still in flight today is an aircraft frame designed in the 1960s.
I know. See, but that really does dovetail with my question too, because the bottom line is, if they have that kind of technology and we do have a secret space program and they're out there flying around like I believe they are, look, why aren't you and I benefiting? That is, maybe that's what you're saying. Is your real question is, why aren't we benefiting from it? Because
exactly.
You believe we have it, right?
Oh, absolutely, I do.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
But here's the thing, like I mentioned to Michael Schratt the last night. Okay, if they say have figured out 0-point energy, okay, let's say they've figured it out, or anti-gravity for that matter. If we got our hands on it, it would end the oil industry. It would end the iron ore industry. It would end a lot of mining. It would do a lot to the economy. It would kill one part of the economy that literally around, let's just take North America, is directly involved in probably 1 million jobs.
Yeah. Oh, at least
2 million jobs, let alone the stock market.
Well, now you're talking, if you want to talk this, what you're talking is who owns the world? Who's running this world and who's profiting from it? And basically what that would do is it would kill their whole economy of running the world. If we're talking World Economic Forum, if we're talking the Bilderbergers, if we're talking the people that run them, these guys, they own the world, and every bit of money that they have, which is trillions and trillions. I absolutely believe that they cannot let this out. Because if they do, that's the end of economies as we know it. And you're absolutely right, Dave, because the economies would absolutely crash. And then they would have to take care of every human on this planet to a point of, giving us the ability to grow our own food with, the type of free energy that we'd have. We'd be able to take care of ourselves to the point where none of us would have to work again. Not unless we wanted to, and not unless we, trust me, the art industry would go crazy. There'd be a lot of people doing art, a lot of fun things, a lot of creative things. And I don't think they want us to have that ability. I think they like the fact that we're in, as Gerald Celente says, Slavelandia, that we're all just working for the man, I think there's a very evil agenda around that, and the free energy and that type of thing, it would change everything. They wouldn't be in control anymore because they'd have nothing to control. So,
and that is the big issue that we have. That is the biggest issue that we have right now, is the free energy. If it's there, if we have it, if we have anything to do with it, it's going to affect everything that surrounds our daily life. Now, on the flip side, we would, and I like how Michael Schratt put it before we go to break here at the bottom of the hour, it would bring us into the next revolution that we haven't seen in a couple hundred years.
Absolutely.
And we're due for another industrial type revolution. This time, maybe it's with ET technology. Lorien Fenton, we're going to return right after this on Spaced Out Radio. And when we return, I noticed there's a bunch of audience questions coming up for you. And I know you love to answer the audience questions, so we're going to save those for when we get back. Spaced Out Radio continues with Lorien Fenton as our guest all night long on the mighty SOR. We'll be right back. Thank you, Glenn John McEnroe, for a wonderful super chat. Very much appreciate it. And he's the pride of Wimbledon, Glenn John McEnroe there. And thank you, Sweet Tony D from the UK, for a nice super chat. Really appreciate that, Tony. And also a big thank you to Louis T-Bone times, 1, 2, 3, 4. Von Patrick times 2. Jennifer, Faze Will, Dutch Hank. Very much appreciate the love, everybody. Hi, Blue Cruise. Terrible times. How you doing? So glad you guys are joining us. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up, thumbs down. Sweet Robbie G, I will get to some scripts for you tomorrow. I got home late from work, and I don't want you to kick my ass, buddy. But yes, I will write them out tomorrow, and I will read them out and record them and send them to you. So, yeah, Sweet Robbie G, kicking my butt when I need it kicked. I like it. So I'll give you a quick announcement here. It's not really an announcement, but how can I put this? I need everybody to concentrate some good energy around SOR, because I got a nice phone call today. And I got, let's just say this. We could use the positivity to help bring this show to other radio stations in Canada. And I will find out in the next few days on whether or not they're going to choose us or not. I had a conference call today with a group, with somebody in the radio business who I've known for 20 plus years. He likes our show, even though he thinks that his old buddy Davey that he's known for 20 years has turned into a definite weirdo. Okay. But if you could send some positivity to let's get this done, this would be a really nice springboard for us to end the year. And I really want to get this done and locked up. So if you could help us out, send us some positive vibes. Hi, Tokeland. How you doing? I would really appreciate it. Because if I get one, I'll be happy. But I know that there's potential to 3 to 5 across the country. And that would be huge. No, we will not kiss Trudeau's butt at any time. Sorry. Fingers crossed, people. Fingers crossed. This could be huge for us. I'm pumped up about it. Hey, I want to remind everybody that I want you to all mark May 10th through 12th, 2024 on your calendar. We're heading to Reno, Nevada for the 3rd annual SOR fan party. I know my dear Lorien will be there because she's awesome. Okay, Melinda Leslie, Jim Goodall, Michael Schratt, Science Bob, Bright will be there, and many others, including Merle, including Tim Senor. We're all going to be there for you. Tickets are $100. Okay, you get a VIP swag bag with that. You get into the live radio show. You get into the VIP party. You can also get into on the Saturday. There's going to be a ghost hunt. I believe Merle is trying to get everybody into Virginia City. And then Melinda is going to conduct a sky watch for UFOs that Saturday night. Sunday is the free-for-all to just party with us. And Lorien likes her peach schnapps. Just so you know, peach schnapps. And you know, a nice pate and crackers as well. You know, so if you want to take Lorien for lunch, if you want to hang out and hear stories with me, do whatever. That's the part of the fan party. And Lorien, you know, as we got about a minute here. You know how awesome it is to be able to hang out with the fans. At conferences, most people like yourself, when you're speaking, you don't have time. But at our event, I know you love hanging out with the fans.
I do. We've had so many great foodie events at your at your party. It was great. I loved it, every minute of it. And I loved meeting all of your fans. They were really wonderful. I mean, really good people.
We're doing it again. We're doing it again. And this time in Reno at the Silver Legacy Casino and Resort. Hey, if you go book your hotel rooms now, I believe they're only around $139 a night. That's down double or probably triple from Vegas last year. So make sure you book them on in, and we're good to go. Don't forget, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. Nothing ugly there. You're going to want to wear it in public. Hi, gorgeous Larry. Here we go, everybody. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us as we're talking some UFOs with Lorien Fenton. We'll get to Lorien here momentarily. Reminder to all of you that if you missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. You can also check us out on every major podcast network like Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Google Play, and many more. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can join us on Patreon at the SOR Space Travelers Club. Lorien Fenton is here, UFO expert. No, she hates that title. She's an experiencer, researcher, MUFON member. We love her around here. Lorien, thank you for coming on in.
Thank you. This is a blast.
I know. You're so good to us here. Let's start off with our good friend Paramarv. Lorien, how do you know about the gray aliens and then, no pun intended, as to eyed brain thing? Is there an actual alien autopsy film showing that or something?
No, there's no film out there. This is from many years of interviewing people who have had that kind of contact with ET, where they've actually shown them what their anatomy is like and or described it to them. It's usually telepathic. The one person I'm referencing right now, he had a close encounter with an ET that was telling him about how, excuse me, folks, telling him how he and the other grays and reptilians created humans as we know them now. Anyhow, so during this whole conversation with the ET, my friend, the ET said to him, "Come up and look at my eye." And my friend was petrified, but he did it. He got within, like he said, 1.5 inches with his eye to that alien's eye, and he could see the little caviar spaces. And then the ET said, he told them exactly what each one of them went to and how they were all connected. I dummied it down quite a bit, but there was much more information to that story. And hopefully he'll let me share that in my book. I think he will. He's already talked about it. And I think we're going to be able to talk about it in more detail in the book. Now, this is only one guy's experience, but I had 2 or 3 other people, I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 other people that have said, yes, their eyes look like caviar, and they told me they were connected to their brain. Okay, and that's all they said. But that encounter with my friend, with the ET, about the brain stems coming off, or the optical nerve coming off of each of those little caviars to those little brains inside, was phenomenal, and it made total sense to me. And I asked my ETs, is this true? And they said it's absolutely true for that species of gray. He goes, a few of the grays don't have it quite like that, or they're a little different, but basically that's pretty much it. Now, what I ask you all to do, the contactees out there that are listening to me, ask your ETs if this is true and get the answers for yourselves, because that's the only thing you can do now. We don't have any other way to distinguish whether they're telling the truth or not. But I believe this story, and my ETs have verified it, and that's all I can do for me. You guys have to find that out for yourself and ask your own ETs. Okay?
Everybody's got a few aliens in their closet, so let's figure it on out. All right, let's go to
Everything I
Simon.
know does.
Let's go to Simon here in the UK, or probably Australia. I apologize, Simon. Who's a suspect for leaking David Grush's medical files? I can answer that one if you don't mind.
Yeah,
Lorien.
please do, because I don't have a clue.
The reporter for The Intercept, and I'm not even going to mention his name because it's not worth it. That's garbage journalism, what he did, number one. Okay? It's very shady journalism.
I know who that is.
Yeah. And long story short, this person went on different television and YouTube channels stating that he had many different people from within the Defense Department and Pentagon officials saying, you didn't hear this from me, but you want to check David Grush's police reports and medical files. And that's how he got tipped off by people in the alphabet agencies. And he did his job. He went and researched it, found things that were not too good. David Grush is a decorated war veteran from the United States Air Force. He has PTSD over it, major case, and he wanted to have his own life removed by his wife in an argument. And he said it while he was intoxicated with alcohol. And that was one of the issues that they brought up. Now, in proper journalism, there's a code that 99% of the journalists are going to follow. There's always going to be scumbag journalists out there. Okay. And this was one of them. Okay.
Yeah.
And if the guy is listening right now, yeah, I would defend my words on that because it's yellow belly to go into somebody's health issues. Now, it's different. Like a lot of people say, well, what's the difference? Rosalind Carter just died and they're saying how she died. Well, that's not going into somebody's private record. That is being released in a statement by the family on how she passed. Okay, so there's a big difference in a lot of these stories. It's much like in journalism, you never ever cover a story or report on a story if somebody took their own life.
That's right.
Okay, like I'm not saying a murder suicide here or whatever. And I know when certain famous people have done it, they've reported on it because of the fame of the person. But normal everyday people, they do not report on stories like that. And I know I've been a part of them, okay, a few times, and it's not cool. But on this end, that's how the story got out about David Grush. Let's go back
to family. Why would you do that to a family?
Exactly.
Exactly. That, to me, that's just disgusting.
It's very TMZ. Very TMZ. Okay. Let's Simon for a second question. Have the ETs ever come back for their crash ships and pilots that you know of, Lorien?
I heard from Clifford Stone, and I don't know if he ever told anybody else this. The last year of his life, he and I were on the phone quite a bit. And I did get to film him in a hotel room at a conference, the last conference he was ever at. And I'm not sure if he ever mentioned this, but he did tell me this on the phone once, and I've never been able to verify it, so I don't know if it's true. But he did say that one time he thought that they came back for one of the ETs because he was told after the fact, after he got the ET to the containment place where they put them, they just don't put them in a room somewhere. They get it inside of this container because they don't know what kind of viruses or, whatever these Grays got, right? And this actually was a very small gray. He said it was about 3.5 feet tall, very skinny. The head wasn't, it was big, but it wasn't huge, not like the other grays. Anyhow, basically, he said that the guys were guarding the container and they looked inside the container at one point and the ET was gone. So who knows if they came back for him or if he just dematerialized and went home himself. Who knows? But he did tell me about that one time. And then, if you want to believe him, Dan Burrish, who is quite the interesting character, I'm at 50-50 with Dan. I used to believe him, 85%. Then it went down to 20. Now I'm back to 50 because a lot of the things he said over the years have come true. So it's hard to discount what he says. I think he's embellished or changed or added to many of his stories. But his one story of letting the gray get out of his containment field to the point where he could go back to where he belonged through a porthole in space, like right around them, is probably, I don't know. I think there's a 50-50 chance of whether it's true or not. So there's another incident where an ET probably went through a portal and back to where he belonged. So I'm not sure about ships coming back for them. I've only heard of them going through dimension, actually, time, space, dimension, portals type of thing. And if you believe the guy from Israel, Yosef, I can't remember his name right now, but you've interviewed him here on the show, I'm pretty sure. I love his story because the ETs came in on a beam of light, materialized, talked to him, interacted with him, and then went back into a circle and spun themselves back into light and went back up through the ceiling. So, you guys, I'm not sure if they even need a ship to really get here, and pick their pilots up. I think they can get them just any way they need to. If there is a ship involved, they're probably, 45,000 miles out in space and then just beam them back. It's beam me up, Scotty kind of thing. Right, Dave?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, how can you not have aliens at 40,000 feet or 40,000 miles away from Earth and not have them beam you down? I mean, who doesn't have that happen?
Why not?
Right? Right? So, what the hell? Let's just make it happen. Okay, let's get to another question here, my friend, as we're going to go to Big J. Lorien, do you have any new MIB stories to share?
Oh, not really. You guys, the last MIB story is the guy down in near God, what's it called? The giant thermometers at Needles, California. There's a guy that was out on a boat out there. You guys know about this story, I'm sure, and I can't even remember his name at this point. But basically, he saw a UFO that was involved in another case. And this is what's interesting about his story is that he saw a streak of green light and he saw a crash. Okay. But some other people saw it too. And the military got out there, got to the crash. And I think Clifford Stone admitted that he was part of that retrieval on that one. And it was in I want to say the late 70s. And he told a bunch of people in town about it or something. And the next thing he knew, he was living on a houseboat on this man-made lake. And the MIB showed up, and one of them was an alien and the other one was a human. And they had all kinds of interactions with him. They threatened him and it got crazy. And that's my favorite Men in Black story. And I wish I could remember the incident, you guys. I'd have to go get a book off the shelf and look it up again. But that's one of my favorites, and I think one of the best well-known ones. And if somebody can refresh my memory on who that was, please do. But I know it was down near Needles, California. I know he was living on a houseboat type of situation. So that should clue you in. And I know he experienced a crash, and then the Men in Black showed up, So, no, I haven't heard of anything lately because, there's an interesting morphing of the Men in Black. I believe that by the mid 90s, the Men in Black, which were probably ETs and humans going to check on people and try to erase their memories of what they saw or did, was very prevalent. But in the mid 90s, then the military took over this whatever it is, this program of hushing people up. Okay, because that's when the helicopters started going over everybody's homes, and I'm looking at her face. The woman Carla Turner and her husband started being attacked, and they were talking about the mind control from the aliens and the secret space programs and things like that. And then Stephen Greer started having those problems as well, and there were a whole bunch of people having, this major helicopter, black helicopter, dark green helicopter. You could not see the faces of the guys inside. They were always in a bubble helmet, so you can never see their faces, which I found extraordinary. And who knows if those are really helicopters. My brain always said, oh, those could be a UFO when they morph themselves into looking like a helicopter with guys on it. I don't know. All I'm saying is they show up without making any noise, and they leave without making any noise, and they're just there and then they're gone. So they're not a normal helicopter. Okay. And these were the people or the things harassing people after the Men in Black type of situation. It morphed into that, became much more military oriented. And who knows if it's real? Yeah.
Let's go to Vaughn here. He says, I believe disclosure has been happening to Earthlings who states that disclosure can only happen to governments and not through you and I. I've seen far too much to discount our truth. A lot of people are starting to stand up now, Lorien, and say, I'm tired of the government BS, tired of the threat narrative that doesn't exist, and the disclosure for dollars groups that are popping up everywhere, left, right, and center in the future $1 trillion+ business. What's your thoughts on disclosure?
Well, I think it's already happened for all of us who are contactees, just like Vaughn's saying here. That's why I have my conference, Dave, is because every one of those people in that room and everybody on the stage is a contactee. Why? Because we all know the truth. We all know that disclosures happen amongst us. We're all aware of disclosure. We know it's real because we've all experienced it. So, and some of the greatest scientists on the planet in our lifetime and other lifetimes have said one thing. If you can observe it and you're having the experience, it's real for you. Okay? Now, whether we can scientifically break it down, we can't, but every one of us who talks to each other knows that the other person's telling the truth, and we're all in this together. So we all know disclosure has already happened for us. There you go. That's my answer to that.
I love it. Let's get a follow-up from Vaughn here. And this will be right here. He says, Lorien, what are your thoughts on the South Pole and what may be happening there? The race Puri maps show another truth in reality. Does the South Pole hold the ultimate truth?
Well, and it depends on what you're talking about for truth there, Vaughn. Yes, the Reese Puri maps, I think that's how it's pronounced, I'm not sure, do show us that the South Pole was there, and it had, it didn't have snow all over it at the time. And I absolutely believe that our weather has changed drastically for all these things to happen, whether it was a pole shift or not, I don't know. But I will say this, there is way too much weirdness going on at the South Pole for me not to wonder if, that we haven't had major civilizations there, and if maybe there was an ET civilization there thousands and thousands of years ago. And one of the people that you should listen to is Dr. Richard Miller. I don't know if he's been on the show or not, but he has a great story. Now, I can only call it a story, that when he was working for the Navy as a private contractor, he was taken down to the South Pole, and he was shown a giant, and we're talking giant cavern, that was actually made. They could tell by the way it was hewn out or cut out. and it had some leftover equipment from ET in there. That's all I can tell you guys, because he can't say much about it, but he has said that on several shows. So I know that it's out there in the system. So I can repeat it. And that he did visit it, and he was there for one purpose, and that purpose alone was to decipher whether they were going to come back for their equipment or for us. And from what he could tell, they probably weren't. It looked more abandoned than, preserved for another day. And one of the reasons they brought him in, and I thought this was extraordinary as to why they brought him in, is because he figured out how to talk to dolphins. They always tell you that there's this one scientist that figured out dolphin language or what have you. And he actually took it one step further, and he was also running a program that's very hush-hush, where he was getting humans to talk to the dolphins and have two-way communication, which is never talked about in our scientific community, because it was very clandestine. The Navy did not want anybody to know that they had, cracked that nut. Anyhow, so there you go. So Dr. Richard Miller down in the South Pole not discovers, but the Navy shows him an abandoned huge cave, and there was leftover equipment from ET. That's all I can tell you.
All right, let's go to another question. We have 3 minutes to go here. Let's go to Neil. Are black holes really what mainstream astronomy says they are, in your opinion?
That's a tough question for me, and I'll tell you why. I've been having major conversations with Marshall Barnes about this, because Marshall Barnes, as many of you may know or may not know, is my time traveler buddy. And he is building a time machine. And I hope to God he does, because you guys, I'm out of here if he does. If one day Dave calls me and there's no answer, it's because I've gone to another dimension, another timeline. And my theory and Marshall's theory on black holes is that they're just time holes. That they call them a black hole. Well, what do they consist of? Once you go in one, maybe there's no time, maybe there's no molecules, maybe we'll fling apart. Who knows? But we don't know, and the scientists have no clue what's in them. So don't let them fool you and say, oh, yeah, we know exactly what they do. They have no idea what they do, except for that they are sucking a lot of energy. I can tell you that right now. Maybe this was my hypothesis with Marshall on the phone a couple weeks ago. Maybe when you get in one, you're sucked into another whole universe that's as big as the one we're in now, which is infinite. Maybe it's just a transport to another whole galaxy, universe, and what have you. Who knows?
Who knows? You know what? I think we can sneak in one more here. Okay. And let's go to Lost Souls. What is your viewpoint on the Kenneth Arnold incident?
Oh, I love the Kenneth Arnold incident. That's the first one I ever got to study. And the man was brilliant, except one thing. He probably shouldn't have gone to the government over this to begin with. I know he did go to the the newspapers at the time and all that. So that was good. At least he got it out there, and it started becoming a mainstream thing. And I don't know that those nines, that they did look like saucers. I don't know. I hate the reporter that did that. They actually were kind of like a winged, like a boomerang winged type shape. And I actually think those are ETs from our timeline, maybe a different timeline, but whatever. The point is, he was seeing a more futuristic timeline with those ships. That's what the take I always got from it, that they weren't, they were here from another timeline checking us out. I don't know. That's my opinion. Who knows?
Love it. Lorien, we're going to continue this conversation with you in hour number 3 after Steve Stockton's Among the Missing. But we are going to shift gears because your other passion is the JFK assassination.
Oh, yes.
And we are going to get into that. And I want to ask you, and I promise I will. Apparently, there's new news out that UFOs may have had something to do with his murder. Ooh, we're going to get into an exciting hour number 3 here on Spaced Out Radio. So make sure you all return because it's going to be a lot of fun with Lorien Fenton, MUFON San Fran, conference promoter, podcaster, beautiful hair, stunning blue eyes. Yeah, we love Lorien around here. My name is Dave Scott. This is Spaced Out Radio, and we'll be right back.
Dave, my eyes are green.
I know.
I'll take blue though. That'd be fine. How
right.
much time do we have?
We got about 5.5 minutes, okay? So
Shoot. I'm trying to decide if I get enough time to go make coffee.
Go now. Go now.
Go now? Okay.
Yeah, because with the intro, and so you got about 5.5 minutes now with the intro, and then Steve portion is about 4 minutes and 40 seconds. You got about 9 minutes.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, I'll be back in a few.
All right, we'll be right back, guys. All right. Hot dang, we've had a good show tonight. Pardon me, I had chili for dinner. I'm starting to get a little heartburn. All right, big thank you tonight to Louie, T-Bone ×4, Jennifer, and Faze Will, Dutch Hank, Vaughn Patrick with 2, Glenn John McEnroe, Tony in the UK, and Kira for the amazing super chats. Thank you for the love. It really does help support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So here we go, everybody, with hour number 3. Lorien, I'm going to put you on mute.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you for joining us wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth, as we're about to get into some deep conspiracy regarding John F. Kennedy with Lorien Fenton. All right, we want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. You can join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Idiot Jenny. Idiot Jenny is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can join us on Patreon by joining the Space Travelers Club. Here we go with Steve Stockton from the YouTube channel Among the Missing and another creepy story.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Among the Missing YouTube channel on Spaced Out Radio. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'm about to take you on an unbelievable journey of people just like you. Their stories and encounters will haunt us on Among the Missing. In October 1993, 20-year-old Douglas Rose, a college student at Maine's College of the Atlantic, and 20-year-old Paul Ryan challenged the terrain of Great Head, one of Acadia's most difficult rock climbing areas. Douglas, sadly, became trapped. The harrowing incident is recounted below from an article in the Bangor Daily News by Diana Gradinger. According to Gradinger, Chief Ranger Norman Dodge said that the pair walked across rocky terrain for about a half an hour before descending to the cliff floor on 2 ropes after securing their equipment. At low tide, they crossed the boulders and entered the sea cave, where they attached their equipment to the top of the cave, allowing them to walk on the ceiling. Although the 2 men were experienced climbers, Ranger Dodge said they encountered problems when the high tide interfered with their climb out of the cave. To exit, the men had to make a Tarzan-type swing out of its mouth to reach the vertical ropes. The wind and wave action, the weather, and the tide seemed to come faster than they had seen it here before. The waves were coming directly into the cave, so the climbing window was shortened, Ranger Dodge said. The men realized the situation was dire and left their gear behind. Douglas could not climb back up the cliff to safety due to the combination of frigid temperatures, heavy rain, strong winds, and high tides. Ranger Dodge said the only way to access the cave was by using the same climbing rope he had used to descend just a few hours earlier. Ryan was the first to make the climb back. Ranger Dodge said, quote, "He went well into the ocean before he reached the vertical line. The surf was high, and it was difficult, but he said that he cooled himself mentally and just climbed up like he ordinarily would." End quote. As Ryan reached the halfway point of the cliff, he turned to his companion and offered words of encouragement. Ranger Dodge said Douglas fixed his equipment on the rope, swung out to the vertical, and went well into the water, where there was serious wave action and surf. Although he was putting out a lot of effort and trying to climb, because of fatigue or maybe hypothermia, because they had been out in the cold all day and they were wet, he was unable to ascend the rope, end quote. According to Ranger Dodge, after spending 45 minutes trying to assist his friend, Brian secured Douglas's rope to the cliff and proceeded to the Bar Harbor police station in the dark. He arrived at the Bar Harbor police station around 8:15 last night, and this incident happened around 5 p.m., so a long time had passed, Ranger Dodge said. Rescuers on a 40-foot boat from the U.S. Coast Guard responded to the scene. So, last night, in the blackest of downpours and with the wind howling like a hurricane, a member of Mount Desert Island Search and Rescue was able to climb down the rope to a point where he could see into the cave. He could see that Douglas was tethered on a rope and pretty much free-floating in the surf and face down, Ranger Dodge said. Rescue efforts then had to be temporarily stopped due to the treacherous weather conditions. When the efforts resumed, Ranger Dodge said this time a ranger climbed down and was able to pendulum swing into the cave. He got within 15 or 20 feet of the body when the surf really picked up. He was completely submerged 2 or 3 times, and we had to pull him up. Later that day, the rescuers returned to the site and made their way down to an area that was reachable on foot. A ranger carefully crept across the rock's face to attach safety ropes. Other rescuers would use these ropes to cross the cliff's bottom and retrieve the body safely. Ranger Dodge said the ropes the men had climbed down on had been severed by pounding wave action during the night. Douglas was finally recovered, and he was taken to a funeral home in Bar Harbor. Douglas's former college roommate, Josh Jameson, said he was a nice guy, an outdoorsman. He enjoyed his outdoor activities and did them well. He was generally a well-rounded guy, and he had a lot of friends. Next up, Robert and Margaret Croteau, 1999. Every year, 51-year-old Robert Croteau and his 63-year-old wife, Margaret, would go to Maine before the tourists arrived and after they left. It was the same in September of 1999. They liked the coast, where they would go to watch the waves roll in, a neighbor said. While standing on rocks by Schoodic Point in Acadia National Park, waiting for their picture to be taken, they were unaware that a rogue wave would rise out of the ocean and sweep them away. Their friend, Kurt Hendrich, was preparing to photograph the couple, but could only look on in horror as the enormous wave swept them away to their demise. The Croteaus could not swim, and their end was ruled accidental by officials. Margaret's sister, Norma Hish, who was asked to accompany the couple on this journey but declined, said everybody loved them, and we're all going to miss them.
Thank you to Steve Stockton from Among the Missing on YouTube to join us with another creepy story, as he does kick off hour number 3 each and every night here on Spaced Out Radio. If you like what you hear, head on over to Among the Missing on YouTube and hit subscribe and take a listen to yourself for free. All right, let's continue on with Lorien Fenton tonight. She is going the distance as Courtney Marcassani had a family emergency tonight, so she had to skip out on the UFO report, but we'll get to her in just a couple of days here. Lorien, thank you for going the distance with us as we now shift gears from UFOs to JFK. And recently, there's been some interesting news thinking about UFOs and JFK that the two could be tied together. What is going on with this latest news, Lorien?
Well, within the JFK community, the UFO connection is never studied, but there are a couple of guys who did write books about some type of connection. Now, I will say Douglas Caddy wrote a book called I Was There, or In the Eye of History, I think. I can't remember the name of the title of the book. It's in the other room. And it was about the Nixon administration giving taped documents or taped conversations from several people involved with the UFO cover-up at the time, the military's UFO cover-up, to a gentleman who got them off to, oh gosh, I'm looking at his face, can't remember his name, Secretary of State, I believe, at the time. And anyhow, so long story short, the Nixon administration was trying to divulge the fact that JFK, Eisenhower, and quite a few of the other presidents had been involved with ufology and that they knew about the ET contact through different generals within the military at the time, and that they were probably the last. I think Nixon was the last sitting president that ever got that kind of information, if I remember correctly from the book. Now, during that time, E. Howard Hunt was the guy who helped plot out the JFK assassination, and he was dining with Douglas Caddy, who was also an attorney for E. Howard Hunt during the Watergate administration and during the whole Watergate scandal. And he told Douglas Caddy at their last meeting before he never saw him again. He said, Douglas, and Douglas said, why is this happening? What is this all about? And as they were leaving the restaurant, they went outside and said, what's this all about? Why is there such a connection between Watergate and what you guys were looking for in the DNC headquarters? What were you guys looking for? What was this all about? And E. Howard Hunt looked him dead straight in the eye and said, it's about them. And he pointed up. So it was all about ufology. I mean, that's what he insinuated to Douglas Caddy. Then years later, this whistleblower comes to Douglas Caddy and says, I'm the one who took the tapes about UFOs and the presidents to this guy, and they were given to me by Nixon, and I hid them, and then I took them to this guy, and I know exactly what what the report said, what they said, what have you. And he wrote the book about it. And it's an amazing book. I wish I was in the other room right now. I can't get up and get to it. But Douglas Caddy, Douglas, and it's a Caddy. Look up the book. It's the eye of something, and it's all about that. So I want you guys to check that out. That's the first place to go. Now, the second part to that is JFK earlier on was assigned to General Forrestal in the UK. I think it was out of Poland. I can't remember where they were, maybe Germany. They were on a base when he was in the Navy. And it is my belief that they were studying the UFO problem back then, that JFK was read in very early on about the whole thing. Ever since the PT-109 incident, I believe he had a secret clearance. I really do, because of what he accomplished over there, what he did. Most people don't know this, but when the PT-109 went down and he got back, he was severely injured. And when he got well enough, he volunteered again for 2 more assignments, very similar to what the PT-109 was doing. And he made those assignments and completed them. But they were so dangerous that everybody else in the unit wouldn't do it. And he just, every time something came up like that, he'd step forward and say, I'll take care of it. He goes, I'll do it. I mean, this is a guy who was not afraid to die. I mean, seriously, this guy was amazing. So anyhow, my theory is that after those whole incidents and he did all that, Forrestal saw what a brave and courageous guy he was and brought him into the UFO problem over in Europe. And so there you go. That's my take on it. I don't know for sure. We're still looking for the documents that prove, and we're hoping, here's one of my hopes. In the JFK community, there are a few of us that do UFOs too, just a handful of us. But we're hoping that this next document drop, if it ever happens again, if we get more documents about what the CIA has, the FBI, what have you, on the JFK files, that in there somewhere is more information about his connection to Forrestal and the UFO thing in Europe, okay, during those years. I think it was the early 50s or so, late 40s.
Okay. So after everything that's going on through the UFO world and through the JFK world now, 60 plus years later, does it not seem a little incredulous to all of a sudden bring UFOs as a new conspiracy theory into this really dark time for the United States?
I don't think so. I think they're interconnected. I've always felt that. Even from the time I started doing my research on UFOs, I was doing it on JFK as well. And I don't know why, Dave, but my ETs, they basically showed me that I needed to be in that world as well as the UFO world. Okay. And I've equally done as much work. I produced JFK conferences. I know most of the surviving witnesses. Judith Very Baker is a friend of mine. I Yeah, I mean, it's pretty wild. I gotta say, there's a huge connection, and it's not really about the fact that it's JFK or UFOs. I just want to make that real clear. What it's about is the secrecy in our government and their involvement in both. Because the JFK cover up is the biggest cover up this country has had, and it's one of the reasons I truly believe that it's one of the incidents out there that if the truth ever came out about it, that it would change our lives tomorrow. Okay, if we all knew the truth, that who shot him and why, and I can tell you the real question you got to ask yourself, it's not who shot JFK, it's who didn't shoot JFK. Okay, everybody was involved in that murder. Everybody. Israel, I mean, the Mossad, the CIA, Interpol, the Canadian government, Cuba. I mean, everybody in the globe, except for the Russians and the Chinese and the South Americans, I think was involved in that assassination. And it wasn't the good guys of each country, obviously, it was the bad side of the countries. The mob was included, the CIA is included. I mean, the Office of Naval Intelligence was involved. The FBI was involved. I can't find any area where there isn't some involvement by some agency or military branch. I just can't find it. And we've all been looking. We're trying to exonerate somebody, but everywhere we look, there's a deep little secret within somebody's organization about their involvement in it. And yeah, so if we found the truth about JFK, the UFO stuff would follow right behind it. And the real truth about UFOs, not this government, Congress asking questions about it. It would just fall open tomorrow.
Was JFK a major proponent to UFOs and disclosure?
Oh, absolutely. I believe, and there is rumor to this effect. We cannot prove it because we can't find the files on it, but we have found correspondence between him and Khrushchev's son and Khrushchev himself about the space program that they were working on. And there is inference to the fact that they are not alone in being in space within these correspondences. They don't come right out and say, we know there's UFOs, we know there's aliens, but they do infer that we will not be the only ones out there. Okay. So I thought that was interesting. And one of the things he was going to do, and I think everybody knows this in ufology, is he was going to bring the Russians in on the space program. And we were all going to do it together as a globe. It wasn't going to be the Americans against the Russians, against, the Japanese or whatever. It would have been a global thing done together to unite us, and that's what he wanted. And he almost had Khrushchev convinced of it. And I think had he lived another 6 months to a year, I think they would have been part of our program as well.
Wow. Why was he so caring about the UFO subject? I've never really understood how the UFOs kind of tied into what it was.
I think he and Forrestal may have, and I this is just speculation, folks. I have no idea. But I think when they were together in Europe, I think something happened. I think they either saw some Foo Fighters, or they interviewed some of the guys that were over, Europe in World War II looking at the Foo Fighters. And I went down. Now, this is something my uncle brought up to me before he died. He was in his deathbed, and I was talking to him about, I wanted to be real clear about his merchant marine days and the UFOs he saw. And I was on the phone. Well, I wasn't with him on his deathbed. I was on the phone with him while he was dying. And bottom line, we were talking about it, and I said something. I said, you know what? I never thought about this before, but JFK was on PT 109 in World War II out on those islands. And I said, do you think he saw UFOs coming out of the water out there? And my uncle point blank said, and this is just speculation, you guys, he point blank said there wasn't anybody who didn't see them coming out of the water back then. He goes, every ship we talked to, the guys had seen something, whether it was up in the sky or coming out of the water or skimming across the water. There was nobody out on that water that didn't see a UFO. He goes, every ship that was out there had to have seen something because you're out there for days. It's not like you just zip over there in a plane and miss everything. You're going across the water for weeks. Okay, so the odds of you seeing something on one trip or the next trip or the next trip or the next trip are pretty darn good. And he said, we all saw something. And like I said earlier in the show, it was a common rule back then. You didn't talk about it to anybody because it was naval intelligence. Okay, so, or national security or whatever they wanted to call it back then. So I am convinced that he saw something back then, and that's what elevated him to get that secret clearance, and that's what got him working with Forstall in Europe. I am sure they probably were interviewing the pilots that were there that saw the Foo Fighters. I am sure he knew about this whole situation, you know, and probably one of the only presidents who wanted to know about the situation since Eisenhower, because I think Eisenhower was pretty much into it as well.
I think a lot of presidents have been into it. I just don't know why, they've been assassinated for it. With 2 minutes to go here before we have to go to break for our final break of the night, Lorien Fenton, I want to keep it on the UFO topic here for a quick second. How come we didn't hear this when Eisenhower talked about the military-industrial complex or Nixon taking Jackie Gleason down or to visit bodies? I mean, we know there's precedent for this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like I said, Nixon was the last one I think they were allowing to actually get any information about it. But, I just think that Eisenhower, and this is just my opinion about his speech, I think he was warning us about it. I think he was warning us about it in the best way he could. He wasn't bringing up UFOs, and he's bringing up the fact that these guys are hiding everything and causing wars. And why are they causing wars? And it's really over the fact that they wanted to keep control and power over everything. And there are people out there that were funding both sides of every war we're in. And those are the guys that we had to watch out for. I don't think he was worried about UFOs at the time. I think he was more worried about people in that speech.
I'm going to throw something out there because Henry Kissinger has just passed away at the age of 100. I mean, I thought the guy was immortal. I literally thought he was about 305 personally. Okay. But when you look at how many people allege him to be extremely crooked, especially during the Khmer Rouge after Vietnam, okay, an ugly person who really had no care except for himself. When you look at him and because he was there throughout those administrations,
the one Douglas Caddy's guy was delivering the tapes to. I couldn't remember his name, and you're right, it's Henry Kissinger.
That's right. Okay, did he have anything on the UFO front with JFK? Did he know about UFO?
I don't know if JFK was the person he knew about, but definitely Nixon. Yeah, because he was the guy receiving those disclosure tapes about the ufology and everything. So, and Kissinger, who knows what he did with them? My guess is he sat on them or gave them to his evil buddies, the counterpart Bilderberger type people. I don't know. I'd like to find those darn tapes, though. I'll tell you that.
More on JFK and the conspiracy behind it with Lorien Fenton as we go into our final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Make sure you tune us on our podcast if you missed portions of this show. We will be right back after our final break of the night. Wow, this is flying by.
I know. It always does. It always goes by quick with us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So nobody's got questions from the chat?
Not yet.
Not yet. That's okay.
There is one from Jenny. Yeah. Good old Henry. I thought he was immortal. I really thought he was immortal.
Yeah, he was definitely a interesting character. I'm not sure which team he was playing on.
Never know.
God, I wish I had thought to bring Douglas Caddy's book into the room because I would love to have gotten more into detail about it, but it's pretty amazing. The story's mind-boggling. Let me see if I can find it. As a matter of fact, I think he went on the Dark Journalist show and talked about it. Because Dark Journalist has done a whole bunch of JFK stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called Being There. And has a big eye on the cover. Okay. I don't know how you do this for 3 hours a night. My butt gets tired.
I'm always shifting. I'm always shifting.
I can barely handle 2.
You know what? I've done it for so long, though. Like,
Yeah.
you gotta realize, like, my radio career, I'd be in studio 7 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? That's why I get up and go for a walk during the breaks, like the top of the hour breaks, because I could feel, my body kind of seizing up a little bit.
Yep. Speaking of, I'm going to take...
Any questions for Lorien? Let's try and keep them this half hour to JFK related topics. We've kind of already discussed the UFO stuff, but I'll give you this one. We got 2 minutes, and Big J wants to know any opinions on Bud Hopkins.
Yeah. I thought he did a great job for what he did. He was the first guy to actually bring out the contactees. I mean, one of the first guys. And really take them seriously. And nobody else had really up until that point. I think was he one of the guys that did Betty and Barney Hill at a later time, if I remember correctly? I could be wrong about that. But there were a few hypnotherapists around at the time that actually helped contactees, and they would never go on record, though. And the first guy that did Betty and Barney Hill, he was very reluctant to have his name out there, but he finally let it happen, and he let the tapes go. And yeah, I mean, yeah, you got to remember Betty and Barney Hill. If it wasn't for those two either, I don't know how many other people would have been not afraid to come out, because for some weird reason they weren't ridiculed as much as as society could have done to them at that time. They didn't lambaste them.
Very understandable. Very understandable. Okay, thank you for answering that. Want to say a big thank you to Louie, T-Bone ×4, Jennifer, and Faze Will, Dutch Hank, Vaughn Patrick ×2, Glenn John McEnroe, Sweet Tony D, and Kira for those amazing super chats tonight. Very much appreciate the love. Really
I thought
do.
T-Bone was a hat trick. Now he's a what do they call that? Where you get in a fight too?
1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, he's at 5 now. Holy cow! I missed one.
Jeez.
Yes. Good Canadian kid, that T-Bone. Must have won the old 649 on Saturday night. Mm-hmm. Thank you, buddy. All right, we got 10 seconds, everybody. Here we go with the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. Reminder to all of you that if you missed most of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can join us on Patreon in the SOR Space Travelers Club. We continue on till the top of the hour with Lorien Fenton, and we are talking the conspiracy of JFK. Was it about UFOs? Was it about something else? We will never, ever really know, truly. Well, will we? All right, Lorien, welcome back.
Thank you. Well, I got to say one thing to that, answer that comment. It
Sure.
wasn't one thing. It wasn't one thing. It was UFOs. It was the financial system. It was, now, I don't think he would have pulled us out of Vietnam as quickly as everybody says he would have. I think he would have played a little more games with Vietnam. But Vietnam was definitely a piece of it, which led to the whole Cuba problem. As everybody knows, in 1963, we had the Cuban Missile Crisis, and he did not do what his CIA advisors advised him to do, and they lost people down there on those beaches because of that, and they never forgave him for it. There were a lot of people that really hated him. It isn't like now where we could say, well, we really hate Trump, but Trump didn't, whatever. Anyhow, point is, they really hated him as much as they hated Trump right now, okay? So there's that going on. And so most people think that he wasn't disliked. Well, he was very much disliked, especially by people with money. People with money did not want him having as much power as he had, and they certainly did not want him uniting Russia with the United States over the space program. That was a huge issue, too. And he was not happy with Israel at the time. I think he was going to stop sending them money. There were some civil rights actions he was doing that the South didn't like. He was there. I keep saying that there isn't one thing he was doing that anybody liked, except for me. I would have loved it because it would always benefit the normal, everyday person and not the guy who was really wealthy. So there's that.
Yeah, I get you there. And it always made me kind of wonder about that, considering how rich the Kennedy family was as well.
Right. Well, his dad basically bought that election, especially in Chicago, and the mob was not happy with the fact that you guys got to remember something. Everybody says Robert Kennedy went after the mob, and it was his fault that his brother got killed. He could not have done anything as Attorney General without the approval of his brother, the president. Okay? Everybody's got to remember that. And there's something else everybody needs to remember. There's no way Lee Harvey Oswald gets back into the United States from Russia without being thrown in jail or at least, being court-martialed or something. Because I think he was still in the military at the time when he defected. There's no way he gets back into the United States and gets to have a job and a life and a passport and a driver's license and a Russian wife without somebody in the State Department letting him in and without the Attorney General signing off on it. And the Attorney General of the United States, Robert F. Kennedy, knew full well that program that the Office of Naval Intelligence put together. They had 5 guys they were training for Russia. He was one of 2 guys that actually made it over there. and he got back in and came to the United States and then started working for Office of Naval Intelligence and CIA, the FBI. He was an informant for the FBI. He was working for every agency he could do, and Robert F. Kennedy knew his name because he signed off on him coming back to the United States without being court-martialed or killed or imprisoned. So everybody forgets that. I mean, they go, oh, yeah, he came back from Russia. You know, you don't get to come back from Russia in 1962 or 61 or whenever he came, 60, whenever he came back and just hang out. It doesn't work like that. At least it didn't then.
All right. As I think about it here, and I look, Lorien, towards where we are today with the JFK assassination, how do we try and solve this mystery 60 years later, knowing that there's not anybody going to be giving up the facts? I mean, the closest we came was with Donald Trump, who locked him up again, pretty much,
Yeah.
after redacting absolutely everything. What's in that file that you think being the reasoning they wouldn't release more?
Well, I think there is some Russian intelligence in there that they've got to get out. There's people now. People forget there's still people alive that are mentioned in those documents that did work for the CIA, the mob, and everybody else. So you're not supposed to be releasing documents where people are still there to be either prosecuted, persecuted. I mean, there's many things about not releasing people's names. So the redaction is very important. I get that. And, you know, I don't think that they're going to let them all out for at least another 5 to 10 years, because by that time, most of the people involved will be dead. And most of the people that are there that are still alive, there's only a handful, a dozen, maybe of the real witnesses that were there that day. And, yeah, and what's inside of them that they're hiding? Well, it's got to be foreign relations with Russia. You know, it's got to be the relationship with Israel at the time, because it was kind of interesting what was going on with them, and probably what the mob was doing. I think there's a lot of mob stuff in there as well. So, and what everybody forgets, and the reason I keep bringing up Israel is what everybody forgets is that Meyer Lansky and, gosh, I can't think of all the guys in Vegas right now. They were all Jewish. I know, it kind of blows my mind. It was very interesting. The only people left in Chicago that out of the mob at that time were the Chicago mob, and the Vegas mob and the Florida mob were all Jewish, of Jewish descent. So they were very much involved in this. And another thing people forget about is the fact that Las Vegas was built upon the Mormon church land. And Las Vegas was rented from the Mormons. So the Mormons were involved in the whole Las Vegas scheme. And people don't know about that either. You got to really look into it. One of the people that I looked into that I found out much more about that was Howard Hughes. When I looked into his death, I realized the Mormons were taking care of him, that he was paying the Mormons a lot of money, that the Mormons actually owned many of the properties he leased and built on, and very interesting connection there. So I think if you look at the whole thing about those papers, they probably have a lot of information about a lot of little minutia that they don't want us to know about. So, and it may not be any of the things I mentioned. It could be all the things I mentioned.
Okay. Likelihood of Lee Harvey Oswald pulling the trigger?
Not at all. He wasn't even on the 6th floor. And we have scientific proof he wasn't, because the Algen 6 picture from the AP by a guy named Hank Algens, I think it's Hank, that took that picture, has him in the doorway of the school book depository as the limousine is pulling around the corner at that time. Now, obviously, he can't be in two places at once, but it took us up until about 5 to 8 years ago. I think it's 8 years ago now, to actually prove it scientifically. We got a guy that was an ex-FBI facial recognition guy, and with the new software, the digital software, we were able to actually keep blowing up that picture and blowing it up and blowing it up to the point where he was able to apply FBI facial recognition software from his what do they call that when you go to jail? What do they call that picture? His mugshot. Yeah. From his mugshot, they were able to take that and compare it to the guy in the doorway, and you overlaid them, and they almost matched completely down to the earlobes and everything. And he was able to get like a 93% or 97% match with the FBI software. So we are now convinced, and everybody knew it at the time that was there, that Lee was never up on that 6th floor at that time. It doesn't say he wasn't up there earlier. There's a great book called The Men on the 6th Floor about Mac Wallace, Loy Factor, and a woman up there actually doing the shooting from the 6th floor, if there was anybody on the 6th floor at all. Because what people don't know, there's also a rifle found on the roof of the school book depository. That may have been Mac Wallace up there shooting. We don't know. And we also know that there was a sniper's nest being run by the mob up in the Dow Tex building, right up on the 3rd floor, I think it is, it's a long story, but there was a guy, you could see him with his rifle outside shooting through the fire escape. And they have pictures of it. So we know there was a guy there. We also know that there were at least 1 or 2 groups of people shooting from behind the picket fence. We know there was somebody possibly under the underpass of the railroad underpass that they were going to go under, shooting from the front, because we have bullet holes in the limousine from the front. We also, there is 2 more theories out there that somebody shot from the sewer system down there on the drain on the street level. But I've been to Dealey Plaza many, many times, and I've gone down there and stood where the street drain is. Now, there could have been somebody shooting there, but they weren't going to be shooting at the president, because the angle of the street and the angle of the limousine would not allow you to get a clear shot of him at all. Okay, maybe a clear shot of the driver at some point, but I doubt it. I've gone down there and I put my head on the concrete and looked up and the cars go whizzing by, and where the X is, there is no way I could have shot anybody from there, because you would have hit the car only. The angle was too steep to get anybody, a human being. So I don't think that was a possibility. There may have been a sniper there to take out the other snipers, because that was a thought. I thought that when I was down there, I thought, geez, maybe they were there to get rid of these guys. You don't know. And then there was the person that got pictures of a guy in the pergola right to the behind Zapruder, and to the right about, oh gosh, I think it's 8 feet. There's a pergola there with these holes in it, and we have pictures now of some rifles coming through that pergola. So wow. Now we're starting to think they're there too.
I never knew about that. In total, 6 shooters? Can we say?
Oh my God, no! Because you got to have a shooter, and then his spotter, and the person on the walkie-talkie, or the communications person, as they call it. So you got to have all 3 of them. So there's 3 people at minimum in each spot. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15. We figured there were probably 22 or 24 people involved in the actual shooting, and about 10 people with guns, or 9 people with guns.
Okay, so they may have been providing security for those who were about to pull the trigger on.
Oh, absolutely. And here's the kicker, Dave. Everybody was from a different agency. There's one from the mob. There's one from the CIA. There's one from the FBI. There's one from the Dallas police. There's one from the Secret Service. There's one from another mobster company. There's the guy from Marseille was there representing the French, the French mob. There was what you think are Mossad agents. They were there too. I mean, it was a circus. One of the guys that was there, and I don't remember if it was Tosh Plumley, the CIA pilot, or if it was actually Chauncey Holt, the guy who supplied all the forged documents. I don't know which one it said it, but one of them said it was like going to a Soldier of Fortune conference every murderer that they knew was on that plaza that day.
Boy.
From every agency.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That is just ridiculous.
Yeah, they all knew each other too. That was even scarier about the whole thing.
I want to ask you regarding the shooting and everything. There's also the conspiracy that Kennedy's limo driver had a gun, and he's the one who basically blew his head off.
No, that was brought up by our good buddy who wrote the book, To Hold the Pale Horse. Help me with this, Dave. You got to know who it is. Somebody help us. Shoot. He was the guy who got shot in Arizona. Gosh, I can't think of his name right now. What?
Not John McCain.
No. It was one of our conspiracy guys here, very famous. He died being shot by the sheriffs in his county and the FBI. Shoot. Behold the Pale Horse was his famous book. It talked about UFOs in it also. But anyhow, he brought up that theory at one of the Bo Grice big events back in the 90s that the driver did shoot him. Now, honestly, I don't believe that was the driver shooting him. But I think he was on to something. I think the people in the car and the Secret Service, there were many people within that Secret Service there on the ground that day that knew what was going to happen. I don't think Paul Landis, which was the youngest Secret Service guy, I don't think he knew. And I don't think that Cliff, I can't remember Cliff's last name either. The driver, no, not the driver. He was Jackie Onassis' Secret Service guy. I don't think he knew what was happening either. I do believe, and this is just my opinion, I don't know if it's true or not, you guys, but I've done a lot of research into it. I believe that a lot of the guys were taken out and gotten drunk that night and were up all night partying so that they did not react well. If anything did go down that they could have taken care of, that their reflexes were completely off, and that possibly the driver and at least one or two other Secret Service agents in the follow-up cars knew what was going to happen. I believe that.
Is that why they slow down?
Yeah, he did slow down, and he actually stopped. And I know because I've talked to Beverly Oliver, I've talked to Mary Mormon, I've talked to two of the other witnesses that were there on the grass that day, and they said, Lorien, he stopped the car. I don't know if it was 5 seconds, I don't know if it was 10 seconds, but he stopped the car when the shooting started. And nobody else will tell you that except for the people that were there. And here's another thing that we've just figured out, Dave, not to carry on too much more about it, but the reality is that he was not shot with a regular gun either. He was shot with a gun that, many guns, but the main gun that they heard sounded like a firecracker. It did not sound like a regular gun, which leads us to the fireball that James Files says that he shot him with. Now, I'm not sure James is telling the truth. I've met him in person and I've interviewed him, and I don't know, but I think James Files is onto something. I believe he was there. I don't know into what capacity, but he does know that the sound of the gun was not like a regular gun. And I believe, and this is my personal belief from all the research I've done in 43 years on this case, that people were using silencers on most of the guns, and that only one shotgun was allowed to be used that made noise, and the other one was maybe a fireball or something like that, a small caliber special weapon that sounds like a firecracker, because every witness I talked to says I heard what sounded like a firecracker followed by rifle shots or gunshots. And that's exactly what everybody says. And they said, I heard at least 6 shots. Some of them said 7 to 9. So there you go.
Weird. 2 minutes to go, Lorien.
Oh my God.
Well, maybe 2.5 minutes. Okay. Who do you think delivered the fatal blow?
Well, James Files says it was him. And you guys can go look him up on YouTube. He's everywhere. And he just wrote a new book about it. But the interesting part about James Files is he worked for the mob. He also worked for the CIA for 27 years. He was still working for them when he was in prison. So I really have a hard time with what he has to say. Now, if he did do that final shot, and I think that Ed Hoffman may have actually described him as being the shooter from the fence line, and if that's true, then, why is he not in prison? I still, I asked him that question when I saw him, and you guys will see it in my interview up on jfktruhtv.com, which is going to launch on January 1st. I asked James that question, and he had a very interesting answer about how he's being protected. So why would you answer me with that kind of interesting and probably very truthful answer if you weren't the guy who actually killed him? Now, he'd been shot 4 times before Files got his shot off. He got shot in the back. He got shot in the neck. He also got shot, grazed up on this side of the temple before he was able to shoot him on that side of the temple. So there were 2 shots into his head. The first one didn't kill him, or, it probably would have had he not had the rest of his head blown off with Files' shot, if it was his shot. So anyhow, a lot of people were missing. There were 3 people that got injured by flying debris and bullets whizzing by. So there were a lot of shots going off that day.
Lorien, tell everybody where they can find your podcast.
Oh, you can find me at lorienfenton.com, and I am on revolution.radio right now, but starting January 1st or 15th, we're not sure yet, you will see me on YouTube every Monday at 5 p.m., and you'll see me on Facebook and, everywhere. I'll be there live on camera, just like the old Dave here is.
That would be me. Lorien, thank you so much for being on Spaced Out Radio tonight, and being a real trooper in filling in for the our great UFO reporter, Courtney Marcassani.
I know, I missed her. I wanted to listen to the report.
She needs to speak at your conference. She really does.
Oh, cool.
She's amazing. All right, let's continue on here, because we also want to say thank you to Steve Stockton for another great story as well from Among the Missing. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother Is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, Space Travelers Club, and on X or Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. I know you're out there somewhere. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio at SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night. Awesome. Second Lorien. There we go. That was fun.
That was fun. I don't get to talk about JFK enough. Let me tell you something. I had the most awesome conference last Saturday for John F. Kennedy Jr.'s birthday. When I was
remember, we still are on YouTube and podcast, or on YouTube.
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, I'm just going to say one thing. It was so amazing. I was at the conference, and one of my best friends, Damon, finally got his book out about his murder. And oh my God, we have discovered some stuff about John F. Kennedy Jr. and the plane crash that'll blow your freaking mind. And I got it all on, I recorded it for my conference, and it's going to be on JFK Truth TV as soon as we launch. And people get to sign up for a week for free. So they'll be able to watch it for free. Yeah.
Very nice. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I'm really excited about that because I'm the first one in the United States to break that story. So it's going to be really awesome when it gets out there. Yeah.
Awesome. Lorien, thank you for coming on the show, my dear.
It was a blast. For some weird reason, though, I had put it in for next Wednesday night. I'm so glad somebody in your chat room said, "Oh, Lorien, you're the guest tomorrow night." I'm like, but I've got it for next week. Oh, well, no big deal. I just didn't go to work tonight. I
had it for tonight.
Yeah, I did too. After I looked at my second calendar, I went, "Oh my God, it is here." So yeah, I just screwed up when I put it on my main calendar on my other computer. So that's all. But anyhow,
no worries. We still love you around here.
Oh, I love you guys. So thank you so much for having me. Do you need to sign off right away?
Yeah, I do because I'm tired. But
I know. I was going to say I am too because I don't want to go for much longer because I'm really wiped.
Yeah. Let me just say this to our audience. Thank you, Louis T-Bone ×4 or 5, Jennifer Von Patrick with 2, Sweet Tony G or D, Glenn John McEnroe, FaZe Will, Dutch Hank, and Jennifer and Kira for the super chats. Guys, if you saw me, I was listening, but my eyes were getting real heavy. I mean that by no insult to Lorien and her great talent. But Wednesdays are usually hard for me. So I'm going to get going and get this editing done so I can, like last night, maybe fall asleep.
You got to hit the sacker there, Dave, like me.
I do. I
know,
totally
but I'm getting a cold, so I'm just like, I got to get some sleep tonight so I don't get sick.
I will call you in 2 minutes on my phone, okay?
Okay. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye. And to the rest of you, tomorrow night on the show, who's here? Varla Ventura. The VV, the double V, is back tomorrow night. Guys, I wish I could stay up a little bit later, but I'm just worn out. We'll do it again tomorrow, okay? Hopefully I'm a little bit more awake and cognizant. We'll talk soon. Good night.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.